ABC Sports presents the 1985 World Series from Busch Stadium in St. Louis, Game 3. The Kansas City Royals and the St. Louis Cardinals. Sunday night in Game 2, the Royals took a 2-0 lead in the fourth inning. George Brett's double drove home Willie Wilson, and Brett himself scored the inning's second run. The Cardinals were shut out through 8 because of a masterful performance by Charlie Leibrandt, who entered the ninth having retired 13 straight. But as you all know by now, the Cardinals erupted for 4 in the ninth. Terry Pendleton's bases-clearing double sending the Cardinals home with a 2-0 lead. Hello again, everyone. I'm Al Michaels, and welcome to St. Louis for game number 3 of the 1985 World Series. And everybody is still talking 48 hours later about game 2, when the Cardinals came up with 4 runs in the ninth inning. The decision made by Dick Hauser, and we heard from him about a minute after the game on Sunday, to leave Charlie Leibrandt in the game. He gave up all 4 runs and not bring in Dan Quisenberry. Yesterday, I asked Dan what he felt when Leibrandt was left in to face Pendleton.
Well, at that point, I understood it was sink or swim with Charlie night, and I've seen a lot of sink or swim nights, and a lot of times it's sink or swim with Dan Quisenberry night. It was to the point where Dick felt that Charlie had pitched so well that it was his game to win or lose. It is difficult for me to sit and watch it because normally I'm the one who it comes down to, and it ends up that the buck passes or doesn't pass with myself. I feel more alien watching it happen when I'm not out there. I know what it's like when I'm out there, and it's painful both ways.
Very little doubt about that as we get set for game 3. Once again joined by our pregame analyst Reggie Jackson. Your thoughts, Reg, as we get into game 3?
You know, there are 2 question marks that loom for me. If I was a Kansas City Royal tonight, I would wonder what is going through Brett Saberhagen's mind. He has not pitched well his last 2 times out. That was in the playoffs against the Toronto Blue Jays. He was hit hard in more ways than once. Gave up some base hits, and he also got hit in the hand and also on the leg. And I'm wondering, as a Kansas City Royal, being down 0-2 in games, I'm wondering what kind of game I'm going to get out of a guy that's 21 years old. Yes, he was 20-6 for the season, and he does not walk very many men now. But I'm wondering what's going to happen with him tonight. I'm also wondering about Joaquin Andujar. And if I was a St. Louis Cardinal, I'm wondering which Joaquin Andujar am I going to see tonight? Am I going to see the one that was 17-4 before August the 1st, or I'm going to see the one that was 4-8 after August the 1st with an earned run average of 5.46? You know, they talk about the Kansas City Royals coming in. They were tremendous underdogs. They lost the first 2 games over there in Kansas City. Now they come here to a park where St. Louis plays 3 games here at home. They have the best record in the National League at home. They are 71-35 against right-hand pitching. It almost seems like a matchup like David going against Goliath, although this time David may not have a slingshot.
I think that slingshot should be held, though, by Hal McRae if it was an even-numbered year. Any chance in your mind that the Cardinals, now home with a 2-0 lead, are overconfident tonight?
You know, Al, I remember playing in 1972 going against the Cincinnati Reds. We lost the first 2 games against the Reds in their home ballpark. We came home, seemed like a cinch. The series went 7 games. I remember Charlie Finley saying, hey, beware of the dog. 6 of those 7 games were decided by 1 run.
Well, we're in St. Louis where the temperature is in the 60s and it's dry, and the starting pitchers are Brett Saberhagen and Joaquin Andujar. This has become a postseason tradition in St. Louis. A few minutes ago, Gussie Busch riding the beer wagon in the famous Anheuser-Busch Clydesdales. Quite an ovation. As Mr. Busch took his tour, it's his ball club. And it was something that he did in 1982. He had hoped for, at his age, 1 more world championship. He got it, and now he wants another. And he's right on the verge, in fact, as the Cardinals come in with a 2-0 lead. Now let's go to the PA announcer, John Hewlett.
And now the Kansas City starting lineup. Here is Royals manager Dick Hauser. He was the Royals' leading hitter over the last 6 weeks of the season. Leading off and playing left field, Lonnie Smith. He has 12 hits in 9 postseason games this year to lead all players on both teams. Batting second and playing center field, Willie Wilson. He led all major league hitters with a .585 slugging percentage this season. Batting third and playing third base, George Brett. He is a 6-time Gold Glove winner who hit 22 home runs this season. He's batting fourth and playing second base, Frank White. He hit 2 home runs in the championship series against Toronto. He's batting fifth and playing right field, Pat Sheridan. He has won 6 Gold Gloves in his 11 previous major league seasons. He's batting sixth and catching, Jim Sundberg. He set Royals team records with 36 homers this season and 64 over the last 2 seasons. He's batting seventh and playing first base, Steve Balboni. He had a key double in the Royals' comeback against Toronto. He's batting eighth and playing shortstop, Buddy Biancalana. He was a 20-game winner this season at age 21 in his 3rd professional season. Warming up in the bullpen and batting ninth, tonight's starting pitcher, Brett Saberhagen. And now, ladies and gentlemen, let's meet the 1985 National League champions, your St. Louis Cardinals. Beginning with the Cardinal support staff. Equipment manager Buddy Bates. Trainer Gene Gieselman. And the Cardinal coaches. Coach Red Shaindienst. Coach Hal Lanier. Coach Nick Leyva. Coach Johnny Lewis. And in the bullpen, Coach Dave Ricketts and Coach Mike Rourke. And now the rest of the Cardinals. Outfielder Cesar Cedeno. Infielder Ivan De Jesus. Infielder Tom Lawless. Infielder Mike Jorgensen. Catcher Tom Nieto. Outfielder Brian Harper. Outfielder Steve Braun. Outfielder Vince Coleman. Pitcher John Tudor. Jeff Lottie. Pitcher Danny Cox. Pitcher Todd Worrell. Pitcher Bill Campbell. Pitcher Ken Daly. Pitcher Rick Horton. And pitcher Kurt Kempshire. And now the St. Louis starting lineup. Championship Series. Batting second and playing shortstop, Ozzie. In 35 years to drive in 100 runs while hitting fewer than 10 homers. Batting third, playing second base, Tom Herr. His dramatic ninth-inning home run in Los Angeles put the Cardinals in the World Series. He's batting fourth and playing first base, Jack Clark. He had 34 stolen bases this season, one of 5 Cardinals with 30 or more. Batting fifth and playing right field, Andy Van Slyke. His bases loaded double won Sunday's game in Kansas City. He's batting sixth and playing third base, Terry Pendleton. He was the most valuable player in the 1982 World Series. He's batting seventh and catching, Darrell Porter. He has a .455 batting average for 7 postseason games this year. He's batting eighth and playing left field, Tito Landrum. He is the only major league pitcher to win 20 games in both 1984 and 1985. Warming up in the bullpen and batting ninth, tonight's starting pitcher, Joaquin Andujar. Ladies and gentlemen, now entering the playing field is the color guard for tonight's World Series game. The color guard is comprised of representatives of the Tiger Cubs, Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, and Explorers, all from the St. Louis metropolitan area. Ladies and gentlemen, the Cardinals are proud to present one of our country's finest entertainers to sing the national anthem before the third game of the 1985 World Series. One of today's most popular singers, and a man who annually supports the United Negro College Fund through the Lou Rawls Parade of Stars. Please welcome Lou Rawls.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hail at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, it gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave over the land of the free and the home of the
We'll return to ABC's exclusive presentation of the World Series after this message and a word from our local stations. A cool, dry night in St. Louis, Missouri. Busch Stadium is packed, and here we are for Game 3. Al Michaels back with you in St. Louis. The Cardinals on top 2-0. How about 3 cheers for Dick Hauser as a person? Think about the other night. Okay, he makes the wrong decision. That's easy to say. retrospectively because he lost the ball game. But here's a guy who a minute after that happens goes on national television to explain it, answers the same questions a couple of hundred times, gets into St. Louis yesterday, has about 100 telegrams. The nicest thing he has called in any of those is a jerk or a bum. Picks up the newspaper today, and the big headline says, "Hey, Hauser, never lose with a tiring pitcher." And the columnist wasn't even in Kansas City, but watched the game on television. The next time you think a manager is overpaid, think about Dick Hauser. Let me turn to Jim Palmer, and let's talk about Dick Hauser and some of the things that he might be thinking about. Any advice for him?
Well, I do. I played for Earl Weaver for 14 years, and for 14 years he accused me of trying to manage. I'm going to do that again tonight. I think the major thing is when coming into this series, I wouldn't worry about my pitching. I worry about my offense, and they haven't scored very many runs. So I try to think something dramatic to do. One thing Earl taught me was you play percentages, and occasionally you take a chance. You go back to 1972. What does Dick Williams do when he's managing the Oakland A's? He takes a guy that only caught 49 times, he catches him 6 times, he plays him in first base another time. His name was Gene Tennis. He ends up the MVP. What I would think about doing is taking Buddy Biancalana, who's hitting 170 against right-handers, putting him on the bench and putting Onyx Concepcion, who hit 370 last year, out at shortstop. In right field, they have a guy named Dane Orge. He hit 529 when he played in the World Series in 1982 for the Cardinals. He hadn't been playing too much. And the third thing I do, there's been a lot of second guessing about Steve Balboni, the first baseman who had 36 home runs and 88 RBIs. I wouldn't take him out of the lineup, but what I do is I move him from that 7th spot so he gets some better pitches to hit. Right now, they can pitch right around him. They've got Biancalana and the pitcher behind him. He's not getting too many good pitches to hit.
Weaver was right about you. Let's start with Tim McCarver. Talk about the Cardinals. Whitey Herzog is a genius, of course, because his team has won 6 straight, and they've done it without Vince Coleman.
Well, but of course they've had a very able replacement in Tito Landrum. Tito Landrum in hits, he leads both sides with 4. He's had 2 in each of the first 2 games. And my early pick for the MVP, of course, that's only 2 games. A close second, I guess, would be Terry Pendleton. He had a game-winning double the other night, driving in 3 runs in the top of the 9th inning. And, of course, that sparkling catch in Game 1, throwing out Jim Sundberg. But let's face it, the Cardinals won it on pitching. They allowed only 3 runs to the Royals in the first 2 ball games. And Al, going tonight, Joaquin Andujar. And, of course, Joaquin, before August 23rd, he was termed colorful. After August 23rd, because he's only won 1 game since August 23rd, he is termed volatile. I don't know whether he's colorful or volatile, but I'll guarantee you one thing. A guy who wins 41 ball games the last 2 years, and all the trade rumors that persist about him, there's something strange, and there must be more to it.
I think Whitey Herzog asking the same question. Will the real Joaquin Andujar please stand up tonight? Once again, let's go to the public address announcer, John Hewlett.
Proud to join with sports fans throughout the country to recognize one of the greatest sportsmen in the country and St. Louis's #1 citizen. Throwing out the first pitch at tonight's World Series game is the chairman of the board and president of the St. Louis Cardinals and honorary chairman of the board of Anheuser-Busch Companies, Mr. August A. Busch, Jr.
Pre-game festivities are history, and we'll be back with the start of Game 3 after this. Joaquin Andujar cannot be summed up simply. It's so easy to say he's volatile and that he's erratic, but there's another side to the man, too. In the playoffs, when Jack Clark hit that dramatic home run, if you'll recall, about a minute later, Herzog was having a heart-to-heart talk in the dugout with Andujar. A most curious scene. And there it was, and I talked to Joaquin about it.
I will be honest to you and to all the people watching right now, ABC. I asked Waddy, I said, Waddy, you are an honest man. Be honest to me right now. Be a man, okay? Be honest. Though you going to trade me to Detroit, just like the paper say and people been talking about? And Waddy said, I will be honest to you. I'm not going to trade you. And say, I'm happy because, I love St. Louis, and I like you because you are a great man and good person. I like all my teammates because they like me, I like them. And they are good people, especially St. Louis fans.
That was what you were talking to Herzog about in the ninth inning in the dugout in Game 6?
Oh, sure, because, I worry about it because, just like I said before, I love St. Louis. I don't want to get out of St. Louis. And I tell you that, if I had plenty of money to support my family and what he has to trade me, no matter where he trade me, I will quit playing baseball because, right now in my heart, I just have only one club, St. Louis and St. Louis fans.
Joaquin Andujar has been called, among other things, Mucho Macho. He has been known as a headhunter. He has been known as one tough Dominican ad nauseum. But there's a flip side to that. And speaking of flips, we'll take a look at Ozzie Smith and what he does to get the crowd going. It's taking place as the Cardinals took the field just moments ago. But Jim and Tim, both knowing the psyches, the fragile psyches of athletes, to have a man in that situation with the team so jubilant, with Clark's home run having occurred 60 seconds before, as you take a look at the St. Louis defense, go up to Herzog and ask him at that point, am I going to be traded? I found to be amazing.
Well, I think it also shows a very sensitive side of him. Just because you knock guys down, I mean, I know a lot of pitchers, a lot of players that are real tough out on the field, but they also have a sensitive side. They have a caring side. And a lot of times he said, I went up to him on the bench because that's the best time to do it. I'm not sure about that because I had many of arguments with Weaver on the mound that I should have had with him in his office. But he's just, to me, it shows that there is a human side of him.
There's Vince Coleman with Tom Nieto cooling him off on the bench. But under the circumstances, Tim, an amazing time. I can see maybe talking to Herzog on the bench in the third inning in Atlanta in June, but at that time.
Yeah, not in a game situation. What a game situation comment that was.
Lonnie Smith is the batter leading things off, and he takes a strike, and the count is 0-1. Jim McKean, an American League umpire, works the plate. And then you've got Bob Engel, John Shulock, Jim Quick, Don Dinkinger, and Billy Williams. And as you can see, they alternate, the 6 of them. Smith, who hit .257 and started the season here, up high, and we can develop it later in the ball game. But Andujar and Smith were 2 men both involved. Lonnie on the stand in the Pittsburgh drug trial and brought Joaquin's name into the testimony. Up high, 2-1. So automatically we begin with a sidebar of note. And Andujar was obviously extremely upset when in testimony Lonnie Smith admitted to procuring drugs for Andujar. A strike and the count 2-2.
We're also talking about a guy that led the National League in knockdown pitches and hits batsmen. But he does seem to have his good stuff, and I think the thing we have to look for really is him getting up in the strike zone. He just threw a ball 92 miles per hour right on the corner. And if you talk to Mike Rourke, the pitching coach, he said he gets in trouble only 3 or 4 bad pitches a game, but he makes them at crucial times.
Half swing, they appeal, get the call at first base, strike 3. The scowling countenance of Bob Engel telling Lonnie to go back to the dugout.
And 3 of those 4 bad pitches a game have been on sliders, but there's a perfect one right on the outside corner. If you got a 92 mile per hour fastball and you keep your breaking ball there, you're going to be tough.
And it's much more important to keep the ball on the outside corner than it is velocity. I've always been a believer in location, in and out primarily, as opposed to velocity. Velocity's way down on the list in getting guys out.
Now Willie Wilson, the batter. He finished second to Brett on the club this season at .278 and wraps it into left field for a base hit. So Wilson, with his 43 stolen bases during the regular season, is on. And it brings up Brett. Brett has come up in postseason play a total of only 4 times with runners in scoring position, and only once did they pitch to him. And he made out. The other 3 times they walked him intentionally. And again, here he comes up with a man not in scoring position after a year in which he had 30 homers and 112 RBIs.
Yes, RBIs in postseason play have come on 3 home runs. 3 home runs have accounted for 5 RBIs, the other an infield out.
Well, I get the question a lot of times, Al, when people say, well, was George Brett a tough out when you pitched against him? Well, he sure was. And when I was pitching and Wilson was on first, I considered that Wilson was in scoring position because Brett can hit the ball with the best of them. Not only does he hit it for base hits and doubles the other way, but he's a power hitter. And if Andujar does not make good pitches, the ball is going to be stroked mighty hard.
I think Andujar knows that Wilson can run. Obviously, a guy with 43 stolen bases. Andujar, an outstanding move. He's got quick feet, and he throws that ball almost like a catcher right behind his ear. Quick.
Wilson taking a rather conservative lead. Held on by Clark. Cardinals play Brett straight away. And again, Joaquin keeping Willie on his mind, but Willie not taking very much of a lead, and that's easily evidenced by the fact he's going back in standing up.
Well, a lot of your better base runners, Al, did go back standing, and I think Lou Brock did too. But I think that the thing you look for is when a guy has a good lead, he has his right foot out there on the carpet.
At least.
And there he goes. He does get a good jump. The pitcher's outside, and the throw is a one-hopper. So Willie Wilson steals on Andujar. He had his foot barely at the edge of the carpet and got a great jump, and Porter really had little chance.
Well, along with a good lead, you have to have a good jump, accelerate in a hurry, and that's what Wilson did. Darrell Porter had no chance to throw him out, and that's why Ozzie Smith just blocked the ball as opposed to waiting. And this is what happens when Willie Wilson runs, but you got to keep running.
So the risk you take is that they're going to walk Brett, and again, as we've pointed out, coming up only the 4 times with men in scoring position, and now 5 times after the steal, and that's the 4th intentional walk he has gotten in that circumstance. It's not surprising, and it's especially not surprising in the World Series without McRae hitting behind it.
Second baseman.
Well, it does show me some respect, Al, for what they think of George Brett, because Frank White is hitting .429. He's been up 7 times with 3 hits, so it's not exactly, and there you see his year stats, all-time home run high. Again, McRae has been their key hitter in the 4 spot, but White is having a great World Series. It just shows me that if you're going to get beat, you don't want to get beat by George Brett.
Frank White, who had only 2 hits and 25 trips to the plate in the 1980 World Series, had 3 hits in Game 2. Ball 1, 1-0 the count. It's a cool night in St. Louis and getting chilly. Temperatures in the 60s. Ballpark is basically enclosed, though there are some openings, and the breeze can come in through the openings in the outfield, and the flags are whipping pretty good up on the roof of the stadium. In the dirt, Tim, you spent a lot of time playing in this ballpark. When it's that windy outside, how windy is it inside?
There's no such thing as wind in this ballpark. There is Death Valley in right center and left center, and a wind rarely helps any ball, negatively or positively. You can hit it a ton with the wind blowing out. The wind, you know, this is encircled, and the wind rarely has a chance to get down inside this ballpark and create any kind of swirling effect.
2 balls and 1 strike to count.
I think what would make Willie Wilson's steal of second base better, as you see the graphics on the stator.
Very
Almost
similar ballparks.
Uh-huh.
2 teams relying on speed, not relying on the home run, and playing in spacious ballparks with AstroTurf.
Watch Wilson at second base.
That's foul to the plate. The count 2-2.
What would make his steal of second a little better on the average with the Cardinals walking Brett would be an attempt to steal third, especially with his kind of speed.
Speed gun early consistently has Andujar in the low 90s. 2 on and 1 out. And the 2-2, he drops down as he's prone to do, and it's low. Andujar will do that often. They appeal at first base on the call and don't get it. But with 2 strikes, Andujar loves to come sidearm. So now full count and 1 out. And we'll see about Wilson and Brett on the bases.
Bet your house on it. They are running. You've got good speed on the bases and a contact hitter like Frank White, who may get a slider from Andujar.
There they go. And the breaking pitch is grounded toward the middle, but to Tommy Herr, who steps on second. Two-hit double play for the Cardinals. The runners go, and the ball is hit right to the bag. That's the only way you turn a DP in that situation. And the Royals must figure what's going on.
Watch George Brett come up with his hand. This is actually illegal as he tries to knock the ball out of Tommy Herr's glove, but Tommy Herr steps back and completes the throw.
Last Wednesday night in Toronto, Brett Saberhagen was on the mound in the crucial final game and worked 3 innings. And he had to come out because in the first inning, this took place, as you'll recall. Willie Upshaw hit a one-hopper right back off his hand. And so yesterday at the workout here at Busch Stadium, I asked Saberhagen about the hand.
2 days ago, I went through on the side, and there was no problem. All my pitches were working. It didn't hurt to throw. Yesterday, I came out, and I was a little concerned about batting. Would it hurt or not? And I went out yesterday, had batting practice, swung the bat, bunted, hit. There was no problem. I came out again today. All the swelling's gone. My hand's fine, and I'll be ready for tomorrow.
And he's ready right now with Smith, Wilson, and Sheraton. Brett, Biancalana, White, and Balboni in the infield. And then Saberhagen and Sundberg, the battery. And the Royals must begin, I would think, Tim, at this point, to feel a little snake bitten.
Things are not going their way. Watch George Brett come up. As you mentioned, Al, had Brett not been running, they would have had no chance for a double play.
McGee is the batter, and he takes outside, ball 1. 1-0 the count on McGee. Switch hitter, remarkably consistent this year, only an 8-point differential from the two sides. And Saberhagen behind 2-0. We have to, of course, pick up the watch of Brett Saberhagen. A strike started by Bob Costas during the playoffs last week with Janine Saberhagen, who was in the booth during the playoffs. Unfortunately, Janine not in the booth here tonight. She's back home in Kansas City because she's due any day. And it's fouled away, 2-2. Whitey Herzog looking for his second World Series ring in the last 3 years.
Seems to be the month for fathering and mothering children. O.J. Simpson and Joe Namath.
That's right.
Proud fathers.
2-2 pitch is hit in the left field for a base hit. Willie McGee, and you've heard the term, been used for years, hits to all fields, and he's showing it.
Well, he takes a good pitch, low and away, 2-2 right on the corner. He does what he's done all year, just goes right with it. Much more of a left field hitter left-handed, even though he can do it from the right side. And well, I don't know. When I pitch and a guy with McGee's speed gets on, it's like sometimes throwing a double.
McGee had 56 steals, caught 16 times. Brett is in shallow at third base. Smith, the switch hitter.
Saberhagen doesn't have an outstanding move. His biggest asset as a pitcher is getting rid of the ball in a hurry and giving Jim Sundberg a chance to make the throw to second base. So there won't be much deception in the move. It's the release point we're really talking about.
Coleman led the league in steals. Vince had 110, and McGee was third back of Tim Raines. He doesn't go, and the pitch is outside. And it's worth saying again, if you didn't hear it the other night, with the absence of Vince Coleman, there's a tendency to think that the Cardinals are minus a big part of their game speed. But throwing out those 110 Coleman steals, the Cardinals still led the majors in stolen bases. As Smith pops him in the air. Frank White moves over, crosses into foul ground, and that's the first out. 1 out in the first inning, and Tommy Herr, the switch hitter, comes up. You might find it curious that the Cardinals have so many switch hitters, but Tim, that's been the case here for years. They keep changing the roster, but it always seems that the Cardinals have 4 or 5 switch hitters.
Not only switch hitters, but the same type of club. As a matter of fact, in the 100-year or so history of the St. Louis Cardinals, they have led the National League in home runs only 5 times. Look at the Gas House Gang back in the 30s. They could run. They played a similar style of baseball that the Cardinals do today.
And this Cardinal club will never lead the majors in homers because the old club played in the old ballpark.
That's right.
Since I'm not old, how did the old ballpark? And you are, Timmy.
I played for 3.5 years in the old ballpark.
Was it much?
Oh, it was a great park for left-handed hitters. 310 down the line, 354 to right center. You would have loved to have pitched there.
Her at the plate, and looked like a pitch shot. Sundberg hesitated after going to the outside, and the count 1 ball and no strikes. McGee, the runner at first base, 1 out at the bottom of the first inning. Game 3, no score. Game 4 tomorrow night, 8 Eastern. If a 5th is necessary, Thursday, 8 Eastern. And then back to KC if necessary Saturday and Sunday for 6 and 7.
I think a thing to note, Al, is when you see Willie McGee get his lead, we talked about Willie Wilson's lead, foot not on the carpet. You look at McGee's foot, he's almost about 1.5 feet out there, and he has the same kind of speed.
And he has a good jump, and the throw down to second, not in time. So he had a bigger lead, got almost as good a jump, and beat Sundberg's throw.
Again, a simple case of just outrunning the baseball. You get a good lead. Not a bad throw, even though it's on 1 hop. But when you give a guy a big lead like that and you have speed like McGee, you just can't throw him out. Best way to avoid that is to get him out in the first place.
Tommy Herr hit .313 as a left-handed batter this season. 302 overall. Breaking pitch. Strike 1.
It gives you a fairly good idea of Saberhagen's pitching ability. He gets behind 2-0. What's he throw? A curveball, and that really has not been his #1 off-speed pitch. Basic repertoire is a fastball, excellent changeup, a lot like Charlie Liebrandt, but from the opposite side.
Change again, and the count 3-1. So a little different pattern for him at the outset tonight.
And a different hitter hitting behind both third-place hitters. You have Frank White, who normally hits 8th, 7th, and 8th, hitting behind George Brett, and Jack Clark hitting behind Tommy Herr. So you're not as prone to pitch around Herr as Andujar is prone to walking George Brett.
And Herr is on. So runners at first and second, and both clubs start the same way. 2 on and 1 out.
Batting fourth.
White hit into a double 22. Play, and now we'll see about Clark.
Jack Clark.
2 for 7 in the World Series. His dramatic home run, of course, did it in LA last Wednesday. And you heard the ovation they gave Clark when he was introduced. Remember, this is the first time the Cardinals have been home since they won a pennant in LA. And the Cardinals, the first team since the 27 Yanks, interestingly, to take a 2-0 lead in the World Series without hitting a homer. That 27 Yankee team, I don't have to tell you, had Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig and Bob Uezel. Murderer's Row. 1-0 the count.
It kind of established the pitching pattern to Jack Clark. I was talking to some of the scouts down on the field. They said, gee, Dienfuhr has a great arm, but everybody in the league knows that Clark's a first ball fastball hitter. There we saw the curveball, but Saberhagen missed with it. Get the feeling that Clark, and of course we talked about this in the first 2 games, the reason that Clark was so sought after, Whitey Herzog trying to keep abreast of the Mets. They get Gary Carter. He feels that Clark, a home run hitter, would make his ball club. Only 8 here in St. Louis, but 22 on the year. Want to stay away from his power.
Up and in, 2 balls and no strikes.
With a changeup, so they're trying to get his. And again, what's so remarkable about Saberhagen is his ability to throw strikes. But again, he does respect Jack Clark. He's trying to get his curveball and changeup over. Does not want to have to throw him a fastball.
Yeah, but he's in a position right now, Jim, and that's the problem with missing with off-speed pitches.
Clark takes a strike. That's a good 2-0 pitch.
If you don't establish your best pitch early, when are you going to establish it? And he walked Tommy Herr, of course, with first base open on the curveball 2-0 and the 2-1 straight change, but now he's behind on Clark.
And Clark wraps it foul, and the count is 2-2. On deck is Andy Van Slyke. McGee is the runner at second, and Herr at first. 1 out, no score. On deck is Van Slyke. Landrum had been hitting fifth, but against the righty Saberhagen, Herzog moves Tito down to 8, and Van Slyke replaces Cedeno in the outfield. 2-2 is just outside. Ball 3-2.
It's an interesting point you make, Tim. Saberhagen has a 93-mile-per-hour fastball. I talked to some of the Kansas City pitchers, and they said the whole Cardinal team, the scouting reports, are all high ball, first ball, fastball hitters. And Charlie Lebrand and Danny Jackson said, we just pitch the way we want. That's the way we pitch. We're going to go after them. We have to establish our fastballs. And they did it. They pitched very well. Again, the problem that the Royals have had is not the pitching, it's the offense.
Let's see about the runners here with McGee and Herr, and 3-2 and 1 out. Risk here you run by sending others. That Clark does strike out with pretty good frequency. 88 times in 442 at bats.
But you have 87 stolen bases on base.
But they stay, and it's fouled away.
There.
Wouldn't be that unusual to do it on the second pitch. Managers will sometimes change. And there they go. And it's popped in the air and fouled ground a mile high and back out of play. So Herzog, never one to be predictable, does not send them on the first 3-2 pitch, but does on the second.
And that was exactly what Whitey did, because when you run on 3-2 with less than 2 outs, the jump is insignificant. If you get the steal sign, you don't worry about a jump. You go.
Stay out of the double play.
Right.
Unless he lines out to somebody.
Or unless he hits one to a guy over second base like Frank White did.
White is standing at second. And the last thing in the world you're going to do at that point is pitch. You're either going to back off or throw back there. White creeping again. The runners go again. The pitch is strike 3. The throw to third is a double play. So a carbon copy first inning in a way. 2 on, 1 out from each club, and then a DP. And Clark, who struck out 88 times this year, as we said, that's the risk you run. And you run yourself right out of the inning.
3-2 curveball and a perfect throw by Jim Sundberg. I mean, a blueprint. Cake.
So neither club scores in the first inning at Busch Stadium in St. Louis in Game 3 of the World Series. Busch Stadium tonight, and then tomorrow night, Game 4, and there are the probables. Bud Black is scheduled to work for Kansas City. John Tudor, who pitched in Game 1, goes for the Cards. And if you're wondering about Danny Jackson, who worked in Game 1 for KC, Dick Hauser wants him to have the extra day rest. He doesn't want him to pitch on 3. And so Black, the lefty, gets the start. Here's Sheridan looking at a strike, and the count 0-1. 3 homers during the regular year, and then 2 homers and a bunt single in the playoffs. 1 for 5 in the World Series. Earlier this year, Sheridan was unsure of his stature with the Royals, so you might have heard that he put his house up for sale. Then he hit the 2 home runs in the playoffs, but it is still on the market.
Well, Pat Sheridan really mirrors the problem the Royals have had. They've out-hit the Cardinals, but in run-scoring situations in postseason play, he's 0 for 12, so they haven't been getting the clutch hits. Did come off the bench with a double the other night as a pinch hitter. Again, you might out-hit your opponents, but again, you have to get the key hits.
2-2. He'll be followed by Sundberg and Balboni. Nice shot of Busch Stadium, a park open in the mid-60s, right downtown on the southern edge of downtown St. Louis. In the air to right center field, and that's Willie McGee. 1 out, bases empty in the second inning, and Jim Sundberg will be the batter. Joaquin Andujar
No stranger to postseason competition, having pitched in the '82 World Series, having pitched in the '82 playoffs, and even back in 1980 as a Houston Astro, he pitched in that tremendous playoff series with the Phillies. Sundberg fouls it away, and the count 0-1.
Matter of fact, he picked up a save in that series, I believe, back in 1980. What a dramatic 5-game series that was. 4 extra inning games.
And more drama for him, Tim, too, in the World Series in 1982, being carried off the field at one point.
That was in Game 3 in Milwaukee. Line drive, 1 hopper off the bat of Ted Simmons in the 7th inning. Incapacitated Joaquin, but he showed his grit and determination, came back and won Game 7.
1-1 is ripped into right center field for a base hit. Van Slyke over to cut it off, and Sundberg is on. So that's hit number 2 for Kansas City, and it brings up Steve Balboni, who is 2 for 8 in the World Series.
Number 45.
Following a championship series in which he was 3 for 25. So here's a guy paid to hit home runs, and he not only had a career high but a club record 36, who now has been up a total of 33 times in postseason, has 5 hits, all singles. One and oh. Joaquin Andujar, and it's a 2-sided season for him. You can almost turn those numbers around and say it was John Tudor's season. Tudor had a terrible start and won 20 of his last 21. And what it tells you is that Andujar was so hot early, and then for the body of the season, the two of them were hot in tandem. And then John kept going, and Joaquin had his problems. High in the air to deep left field. All the way back to the fence is Landrum, and he makes the catch. And Sundberg goes back to first. He hit it a mile high, but I still thought, and I think the crowd thought, it was going out.
And I thought the pitcher, of course, when you throw that slider in the middle of the plate to Balboni, which he did, and that's the second slider he's thrown. Sundberg singled to right on it. That's the pitch he's been getting in trouble with. Landrum just went back to the fence, made an easy play of it. Gives you an idea, and we talked about the immense dimensions of this ballpark. Of course,
and excuse me, Jim, and plus it's the fall of the year. The ball will carry here in the dead heat of summer, and believe me, it can get hot here next to the river.
Biancalana, the hitter, 188 during the regular year and 170 from the left side. 1-0. The Royals, a pretty loose lot, all things considered, and a good feeling in their clubhouse today as Biancalana hits it in the air to left field, and Landrum fades back to make the catch. But they really have to be thinking about things right now. That double play, and Balboni's long out, and we're scoreless after 1.5. Said before, Lonnie Smith, one of the figures in the Pittsburgh drug trial, a highly publicized trial in September, and I asked him earlier for his ideas about drug testing.
I only know for myself that I'm not that guilty. And the only way I can prove that is probably being tested. And I think that maybe those who have been in rehab, have gone through rehab, may have to do this as a solution, you know, to the problem of people implicating things. As far as the other players who aren't on any drugs, I think it should be their right to either do it or not do it.
Thoughts of Lonnie Smith on a subject that Peter Ueberroth has vowed to address, and very shortly. Outside to Van Slyke as we start the bottom of the second inning. Van Slyke, Pendleton, and Porter against Brett Saberhagen. No score. Van Slyke has had a poor postseason. Andy is 0 for 3. He has struck out twice and fly to center in the World Series. And he was 1 for 11 in the playoffs. 1-2.
course, I think one of Van Slyke's problems is that with the Dodgers and the Royals, he's facing a team that has a couple of left-handers. You sit on the bench for a while. You don't get up there. Normally, many more right-handed pitchers than left-handers, but in the last couple series, he hasn't been playing as frequently. Plus, he's young. You never know. He might be feeling the pressure a little bit.
Bob Feller was the youngest 20-game winner in American League history. Softly hit to third. Brett in front of Biancalana guns down Van Slyke. One away. And Terry Pendleton comes up, and no doubt the crowd will thank him for Sunday night. One thing about the World Series, not only do you get to see the players in postseason play and determine what sort of habits they have and what types of players, but you get to know them as personalities, and it's, I think, interesting for a lot of people to hear the Terry Pendletons and the Tito Landrums speak and how articulate they are and bright, and get to know them as more than guys walking around in uniforms. 1-1.
And you've seen guys along those lines with concentration and intensity, but never have you seen pitchers with as serene and intensified, concentrated outlook as Brett Saberhagen.
Good point.
I'm telling you.
Well, it might have something to do with his stuff. He's throwing 93 miles per hour. He's getting his curveball over when he wants to, and his changeup. I think when I look at somebody like that, I think of maybe a guy like Catfish that has good command of both sides of the plate. Pretty good breaking ball. Catfish didn't have that good a changeup, but he had great control of his fastball, and he could. It's really like having two pitches that you can throw it inside and outside.
I think Tim talking about serenity. Look at his face. He is so young looking. Of course, he's only 21. The remarkable poise he shows as Pendleton foul tips it at the plate. And I don't know that I have ever seen a mustachioed athlete I could describe as cherubic. But in a way, with those little wisps of hair and the countenance.
You don't think Reggie looks cherubic?
Reggie is more angelic. You know that hat he wears out there? That's hit softly and backhanded by White, and he has no play. Frank White having trouble handling it. Maybe a split second too late. White might have thought about trying to push it over to Biancalana.
Gene Mock used to say, when you backhand a ball, try to catch it in the web, and that's usually what happens when the ball hits the heel of your glove. Terry Pendleton appeared to possibly have pulled a hamstring on his left leg going down to first base. He's feeling it right there.
So we'll watch Terry, who had 17 steals, as the pitch to Porter comes in inside, ball one. 1-0.
As we talked about earlier, though, also thrown out 12 times. The thing that impresses me when you look at the amount of steals that the Cardinals had, it's the amount of times they were caught stealing. Obviously, Whitey picks the right times to run.
Fly ball to left field. Lonnie Smith, 2 down. Whitey's been picking the right times to run for a lot of years. There's little doubt right now. There was a poll taken earlier this year in which each manager was asked who the best manager was, and you couldn't name yourself. So Billy Martin had to pick somebody else. And Whitey Herzog
and Earl Weaver hadn't come back to Baltimore yet, right?
That's right. Earl hadn't come back. Billy, I love you. You know I'm just kidding.
Right.
Billy was our partner in the 1980 playoffs. But Herzog was the people's choice amongst the managers.
He makes an interesting point. He said, in talking about speed, he said, if I was managing in Fenway Park, I would not have a team that was going to try to steal 314 bases. I have a lot of home run hitters. Here in St. Louis, it's perfect.
Strike one to Tito Landrum. 0-1 the count.
Go back to that 82 team. beat an awesome Milwaukee Brewer team. They did it with speed. A couple of 3-run home runs here and there by McGee.
Yeah, and that Brewer team that year had 216 home runs on the season. So the Brewers were to power what the Cardinals are to speed this year and were then. And the Cardinals still won it. Won the series.
0-2 pitch is a half-swing bouncer to Balboni. And the Cardinals squander a one-out single by Pendleton. We've gone 2 in St. Lou. No score. Joaquin Andujar working for the St. Louis Cardinals. And I asked his battery mate, Darryl Porter, about Joaquin.
One of the things that hurt Joaquin was the fact that the drug stuff come up. His name was brought up in the Pittsburgh drug trial, and there was a lot of things in the paper, and I think that bothered Joaquin, and I think it would bother anybody. It would certainly have bothered me, and I just think it was something that his mind just wasn't totally set on baseball at that particular time. But actually, in the last 4 or 5 times that he's been out for us, he really hasn't won any games, but he's really pitched a lot better, and his stuff's coming back. He's throwing the ball hard, and his sliders become more effective.
So Joaquin Andujar, who has worked 2 innings, given up 2 hits, a double play helped him out, and also the fact that Balboni's drive stayed in the park. Saberhagen, a great high school athlete, hit .362, and the only reason we show you that, of course, is because he hasn't hit as a professional. So it's the last frame of reference. And he hits it just foul down the right field line. 0-1. In the ballpark, Chuck Tanner, the new manager of the Atlanta Braves, and the garrulous one, Tommy Lasorda, who's here with obviously mixed emotions. He'd rather be in uniform, but his favorite restaurants, I guarantee you, are in St. Louis, and he wasn't going to miss up a trip here. Strike 2 and the count 0-2.
And speaking of Chuck Tanner, he has a new general manager now, former manager of the Toronto Blue Jays, Bobby Cox. A mildly alarming development, I think, Al.
Well, that had been speculated. The oddity, as Andujar drops down and Saberhagen fouls it away, is that Cox was being talked about as the manager and general manager, and then when Chuck Tanner went there as the manager, everybody figured, well, Bobby will stay in Toronto or do something else. And so I was very surprised when I heard that Bobby had opted for a suit and tie. But then again, Ken Harrelson has opted for a suit and tie. The Hawk is the vice president now of baseball operations for the Chicago White Sox, and he today signed his manager to a new 1-year deal, Tony La Russa. Saberhagen goes down swinging. Always a lot of news coming out from the World Series because everybody's here. It's like a big convention.
I was kind of impressed with Saberhagen until Joaquin threw him a low and away slider.
It's made honest people out of a lot of hitters, hasn't it?
Especially pitchers. That's in pretty good shape until they spun one up there.
Now Lonnie Smith, who struck out in the first inning. Lonnie, 257 during the regular year at KC. As a Cardinal playing here for the first month of the year, he hit 260 with 7 runs batted in. And he hits it in the air and falling in right center for a base hit. So Smith gets aboard. 3rd hit for the Royals. They have 1 in each inning. And we'll see Willie Wilson. Reminder this weekend, college football, some good games for you, so check your local listings. Penn State 2 against West Virginia. Nebraska 3rd ranked against the Buffaloes of Colorado. Wilson with a single and a steal in the first. And then after they walked Brett, they were going, but White hit a ground ball right to the bag, and Tommy Hurt turned it into a double play.
Obviously another running situation.
There he goes. The pitch is high. The throw is high, and Ozzie gets the tag down. Lonnie Smith, as Ozzie Smith got hit in the face, maybe the eye, did not get a good jump. Porter got a pretty good pitch to handle, and we'll see the tag again.
Watch the quick tag by Ozzie Smith. He receives the ball in front of the bag, and watch Lonnie Smith, his ex-teammate, come up. Looks like he hit him with his helmet, and he did. Right in the left eye, or the left side of the face. With the helmet, Lonnie Smith, a very hard slider, sliding straight in. He never reached the bag.
actually slid too soon. What a nice throw by Darrell Porter to get Lonnie Smith. And Ozzie appears to be all right.
2 down. You know, one thing that's happening to the Royals, too, in addition to not scoring runs, they've been leaving people on base, but they're also having runners thrown out. 3 guys were thrown out in Game 1. Biancalana was thrown out at the plate in Game 2, and now they erase Smith here in Game 3. And it doesn't count the double plays that have also erased runners.
Well, don't you think, though, Al, the reason they're doing this is when you lose the DH and you lose a position that accounted for 114 runs and you only scored 687, you have to be more aggressive. You have to generate some offense. Seems to me they've run in situations where they wouldn't normally do it during the season because they have an extra hitter in the lineup.
That's one aspect. The other is that the blown suicide squeeze took a man away, and so did Lonnie Smith getting picked off. AL teams graphical reference there how they have fared without the DH. 1-2 pitch is high. 2-2.
That, of course, the graphic means there that this has been the team that would be most affected. Their DH contributed more during the year than any other year that since 1976. So, again, I think that you have to look for that's the reason Hauser's tried to be as aggressive as he has.
That's grounded to the hole. Going to be a tough play for Ozzie, and he cannot get him. That throws out a lot of other people, but you're dealing with Willie Wilson here. And I know the Wizard is unbelievable, but not that unbelievable.
Well, you have to cheat somewhere, so Ozzie Smith elected to cheat up the middle as opposed to playing him in. And when you're that deep, no way to throw out Wilson, especially from the left side. Interesting point right now. Do you think Wilson will be running again with Brett hitting?
I don't think so. I don't know. I think they want Brett to swing. Give him every chance to swing.
If that's the case, why'd he run the first time?
Well, maybe get something going in the first inning.
All right.
I'm getting the feeling that Hauser may be thinking, is this going to be one of those kinds of nights again? I've got Brett up there, and I think I'd better give him a chance to hit one out of here. Just a thought.
Well, it goes back to the way Sparky Anderson used to manage against Eddie Murray. He just was not going to let him beat it. If he ever had an, I saw him in the first inning with two people out, intentionally walk him. Now that's respect.
Wilson showing no signs of going. Talking about before, Jim, the fact that if Andujar doesn't get it where he wants it to Brett, it can wind up in the seats.
The best way to do that, or an easy way to do it, is to worry too much about the base runner.
Brett gets the swing and rolls the ball into right field for a base hit. Wilson is on his way to third. The throw goes through to third and is not in time. Smith with a real nice decoy to make sure Brett wasn't thinking about going to second. So runners at the corners now. That's 3 straight singles, but Smith was thrown out stealing. So 2 down, 2 on, and White up.
Actually, that was a good pitch. He changes up on him as we see Willie Wilson not even hesitating. He knows there's no way that he's going to be thrown out, even though Clark does make a nice throw. Excuse me, Van Slyke makes a nice throw. Like I'm in San Francisco.
Jack's glad he's not.
Right.
Here's White, who hit into a double play in the first inning. Low, ball 1. 1-0. Two balls and no strikes to count. So with 2 down, that's Willie Wilson at third and George Brett at first. No score. Kansas City already with 5 hits, but no runs. Breaking pitch got the corner on the outside. 2-1.
It's an interesting contrast. We talked about Saberhagen, 93-mile-per-hour fastball. Andujar, right around 92 miles per hour. He wants to stay with the breaking ball. The hit that Brett got, the hit that Lonnie Smith got, breaking balls. He has not established his fastball as of yet. Once again, back to the slider. Again, this goes back to what Mike Rourke talked about. He has not pitched that poorly, but at crucial times, he has not made the right pitches.
3-1 the count. And that's high. So with the bases loaded, now it's Sheridan who fly to center field in the second inning. And again, the Royals with an opportunity. They had 2 on, couldn't score in the first. A man aboard in the second, couldn't score. Rourke is going to the mound, and the bullpen will be going to work.
Jim, I agree with you. I think Andujar has a tendency to fall in love with that breaking ball. And even with the fastball hitter, you mentioned earlier Jack Clark, a fastball hitter. And oftentimes, the best time to throw a fastball to a fastball hitter is on the first pitch, because at least there's an element of doubt. Then, if you fall behind a fastball hitter, now he knows you're going to throw the fastball.
You saw Bill Campbell, who's the long man in the bullpen, and Sheridan is the batter. This may be a very critical at-bat right here for the Kansas City Royals. Down 2-0. A little ill luck in the first 2 innings tonight. Another chance. And I just get that feeling that this is a very, very big at-bat. Fouled away, 0-1.
Of course, in my pregame, this is the guy that I suggested as when you allowed me to be manager that I wouldn't be playing, and I have Dane Orge up here. It's probably going to guarantee a grand slam or something.
0-1 pitch. Swing and a miss, and so he's quickly ahead 0-2. Crowd wants the strikeout. And nearly got it as it's fouled away. You sort of get the feeling that if the Royals are to win the World Series, in the clubhouse in Game 7, and somebody said, what's the turning point? You can kind of hear him saying, well, how about Sheridan's double with the bases loaded in Game 3? In other words, what they need is something to get him started here.
Well, they've scored only 3 runs in the last 20 innings.
And it is just low. They appeal at third, and no call there.
He did not go around here. As you see, the hands come forward, the bat head stays back.
1 ball and 2 strikes the count. And that's low. 2-2 now. Bases loaded, 2 down. Wilson at third. Brett at second. And there's White. Two pitch to him. Flat and swinging. So the Royals have left 5 in 3 innings. No score at the end of 2.5. Al Michaels with Jim Palmer and Tim McCarver at Busch Stadium in St. Louis. No score in Game 3 of the World Series. Joaquin Andujar, many of you know, a switch hitter, but not all the time. However, here he conventionally switch hits against Saberhagen and swings and misses. 0-1. His basic theory is that if it's a real hard thrower and he's afraid of being hit on the arm, he'll go the other way. But right now, he's still going to hit left-handed against Saberhagen, who can throw hard.
But he's got good control, right?
Exactly. He looked at those stats. He saw 235 innings and only 37 walks or so, and he said, I think I'm going to go up there left-handed.
A strike and the count 1-2.
Well, hitting right and left-handed. He struck out 50 of 94 times this year. So he does not
get cheated.
Put the bat on the ball too often.
Down he goes.
Once again, subscribing to the Reggie Jackson theory.
Which is?
Let's go for the downs.
Go for the pump.
He looked back at the umpire. You'll see players do that to ask if it was a strike. That pitch very high.
He smiled. I had a feeling McKean said, "Are you kidding?" 2 strikeouts for Saberhagen. And McGee the batter. Single, stole second, and it was thrown out at third in the first inning. Good fastball. You can see how late he swung, 0-1.
He's talking to one of the coaches, Red Shandish, for the Cardinals, and asked him about Willie McGee, and he said, here's a guy that thinks baseball 100% of the time. And then you read a comment like what McGee said. He said, here's a guy that hit 353, led the league in hitting, triples with 18. He said, I don't think of myself as being above other players, because if I do, I'll never get any better. How good can he get?
Up high, 1-2. Modest fella who came over in a trade for Bob Sykes, a pitcher. And people kind of laugh about it and say, who's Bob Sykes? But Bob Sykes could have been a pretty good pitcher, but had some physical ailments, as it's turned out.
In fact, I got a letter from his mother. I guess he developed a blood clot under his arm, and the point she was making, not that he got hurt, but how special he felt it was to be a ball player in the first place. Nice letter to receive.
2-2, got him swinging, took something off it, pulled the string, and McGee chased it. And he lunged at it.
Well, that's that excellent changeup we were talking about. Again, what a changeup does. Same arm action as a fastball. Once you throw a fastball by a hitter, and you can come back with something a little bit slower, way out on his front foot.
Ozzie Smith fouled out in the first inning. Strike, 0-1.
Talk about being out on your front foot. You can be out on your front foot if your hands are back. If you bring the hands forward, all your power is spent. And that's what happened to McGee on that at bat.
1-1 the count.
That was the Tony Oliva theory. Leap out on the front foot, keep the hands back, and break the breaking ball.
Harvey Keene, a great front foot hitter. Stan Musial could handle pitches with that front foot.
Oh, good change again. He's really got that pitch working. 1-2. Grounded to Brett, and George throws him out, and that's the game's first 1-2-3 inning. 3 innings gone. Casey nothing. St. Louis nothing. A reminder there, the New York City Marathon comes your way this Sunday morning. Those are AM times. 10:30 Eastern time it begins. There are the Bikes, Orlando, Pizzolato, and others this Sunday. 4th inning with Sundberg to lead things off. He singled his last trip, and then Balboni and Biancalana facing Andujar. Two balls, no strikes, the count. And now 3-0. He's walked 2, one of those an intentional walk to Brett.
Not exactly having easy innings. A lot of 3-2 counts, bases loaded situation.
Well, keep in mind that Herzog had actually lifted Andujar from the rotation in the playoffs, and the reason he did get the start in that 6th game was Cox's elbow problem. Strike, and the count 3-2. Doral Norman Herzog out of Independence, Missouri. He was grimacing because he must have heard me say Doral. Don't call him that. And Sundberg is aboard. So Andujar living on the edge again. Got out of the 1st inning on a fortuitous double play bouncer to the bag at second. Balboni's ball somehow stayed in the park in the 2nd inning. The bases were loaded, and he struck Sheridan out in the 3rd inning, and now he has walked Sundberg in the 4th, and Balboni the batter. high for a ball. And Porter goes to the mound. Won't take Herzog long to get Campbell up again if necessary. He was up and throwing in the 3rd inning. For the moment, though, the bullpen is silent.
Well, we go back to the famous stat that Steve Hurt has given us all year, that Major League average, when the runner gets on with nobody out, 51% of the time he scores. To get an out when a runner gets on, it's only 14%. So it's important, obviously, from a percentage standpoint, and that's what baseball is all about, is to get the first runner out.
It's a game of firsts, no question.
1-1.
Of course, here what you do, and again, we've talked about Steve Balboni, the 36 home runs, the 88 RBIs, also 166 strikeouts.
You watch his, excuse me, Jim, you watch that first step, and that first step is right toward 3rd base. He's opening up too quickly.
The point I was going to try to make is that when you get Sundberg on, you more or less have to pitch to Balboni, but not around him. He has a tendency to expand the strike zone, swing a lot of balls. Here you have to throw him strikes.
1-2 the count. Sundberg at first base, held on by Clark. Joaquin Andujar started his career in the Cincinnati chain and had some decent years at Houston, but his best years right here. Drops down just outside. 2-2. The 32-year-old Dominican with the 2-2 pitch. Ball 3. Tempting, but Balboni holds back. Now you've got a below average runner at first base in terms of speed, and a guy who strikes out about every 15 minutes.
So you will see Mr. Sundberg staying at first, most likely.
You would think. There's aggression, and then there are other things. He is staying, and Balboni rips it to left field, but this one is going to be caught. Balboni has twice put it into the glove of Landrum, and Steve, who's been slumping, makes solid contact twice tonight, and he's 0 for 2.
2 fat sliders right here. The first one, a fat slider to the wall, and this one, a fat slider right where the fat part of the bat coincidentally lies. Jim Palmer, you didn't throw too many pitches like that, did you?
Well, sometimes I did, and they usually got hit hard, just like that. But if we go back to the point we're trying to make, is that you make a pitch early in the game and the guy hits it hard with a breaking ball, why do you come back and throw him another one? Again, we talk about just making the right pitch at the right time.
Biancalana hits a high chopper, and nobody covers first base. So that's a break for Kansas City when a 188 hitter hits an infield chopper. Clark was coming over to try to come up with the ball. Jack, remember, has been a right fielder almost his entire career. So this is a new position for him, and you can see it right here. Andujar looking, and nobody is there.
Nothing left to do in a situation like that. Andujar, fortunate for the Cardinals and Andujar, he did not throw the ball. But I think the inexperience of Jack Clark playing first base, even though he had a situation where he's played 1 year there, but still, that's not a lot of experience.
Right.
Also, that's turf ball. I doubt if he'd thrown him out anyway.
Probably not. But
of course, when you have everybody meeting at the ball, you'll never know.
It's really tough. All right, now Saberhagen should be bunting. The Cardinal infield expects it. Runners at first and second. And 1 out. Saberhagen squares and lays it down, and it's fielded by Clark, but Andujar then comes up with it as it goes through Jack, and the out recorded at first base. Looked like Clark wanted to make the play, and it went through to the pitcher with her covering.
Well, nice bunt by Saberhagen. First time he's ever had to do it. Gets it down again. Jack Clark, who was a right fielder last year, doesn't come up with it. And Joaquin makes a nice play to make the play.
So So the Cardinals really with a break that time, because that could have been confusion to the extent the bases would have been loaded. And up comes Lonnie Smith. Remember, too, Andujar was the Gold Glove winner among National League pitchers in 1984. Lonnie Smith struck out and singled with runners at second and third. So again, the Royals with an opportunity for a turning point. They had one and watched it go down the drain with Sheridan in the third inning. And they have another chance here in the fourth. Strike. No runs, 6 hits for KC, and no runs, 2 hits for the Cardinals.
Pitch right there, Tim, kind of illustrated your point. Lonnie Smith, a fastball hitter. What does Andujar do? Comes right after him with a fastball. Now he can go with a breaking ball if he cares to.
And he misses away. 1-1.
On all even counts, if you throw to a hitter's strength, then there's always the element of doubt in his mind as to what's going to be thrown. Sometimes you have to throw to his strength to get to his weakness, and you get hurt with that theory at times. You can't continue throwing guys a breaking ball after if he's a fastball hitter, because pretty soon he's going to be a breaking ball hitter.
9 of 18 reaching, but a 0 on the board. Inside, ball 2. 2-1 the count. Andujar shaking his head, thought he should have had that call from McKeon.
Well, again, when they throw him a fastball and try to stay in, look for yourself. Kind of hard to tell from this angle. A matter of really throwing the ball exactly into the glove.
Now here comes Herzog, and the bullpen will get busy again.
Lonnie Smith was looking for a breaking ball there, and Andujar just missed with a fastball. And Whitey realizes that the Kansas City Royals have stranded 5 through 3. They have 2 runners on here, but they're different types of low-scoring games, huh?
Now Horton will join Campbell, so the lefty and the righty both throwing.
Of course, I played for one of the managers, Earl Weaver, that was to me a master of doing what I think Whitey is doing. He is not happy with the game that Jim McKeon is calling behind home plate. Sometimes a manager will go out to the mound, stay there long enough until the umpire comes out, and then tell him what he thinks about his umpiring. There were some questionable pitches on Sundberg that Andujar thought were strikes, and I think he feels right there the last pitch to Lonnie Smith was a strike.
That's what he's telling him right there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because if you come out to argue a ball and strike call, it's an automatic ejection.
Right. Well, there's subtle ways of doing it,
well,
and
exactly.
that was just one.
You get the ump to come to the mound, and you talk out of the side of your mouth like that, you do get the point across. So with Horton and Campbell throwing behind Andujar, 2 balls and 1 strike to count. Lonnie Smith, who is 1 for 2 and 4 for 9 in the series. And that's high. And on deck with the count 3-1 is Willie Wilson.
You might say to yourself, why is he throwing all these pitches? Why is he going 3-2? When you're a pitcher and you don't get any runs, I think you got to pitch a shutout. Got to make the perfect pitch.
Fouled away. Count full. 3-2.
I'm sure that's what the Royals pitchers have been thinking. They have only gotten 3 runs in the last 21 innings as support. But sometimes it works the other way, and it has on Joaquin Andujar here tonight. But it's still a scoreless ball game. But the Royals have been threatening in every inning, and this inning no exception.
A cute little incident right there. How often do you see the runner throw the ball back? Beyond Galana flipping it back to Andujar. You know he didn't put a cut on it. Pitch coming. And it's ripped to right center field, and Van Slyke can't make what would have been a fantastic diving catch. 2 runs will score as he is safe at second. And had even out. I was watching the runner, and he just barely got to the plate in time. So the runs would have counted in either event, and Smith is at second, and the Royals finally get a break.
Remember that 1-1 pitch when Lonnie Smith was looking for the slider? Well, he finally gets it 3-2. And in my opinion, it's a case of Joaquin Andujar going to the slider too often. A diving try by Van Slyke, and he finally gets to his feet, but it's too late. 2 runs have scored, and Lonnie Smith's at second.
So 2-0, and Wilson is the batter, and he has singled twice. And he hits it in the air to left field, where Landrum will make the catch. But you do get the feeling if Van Slyke had made that catch, the Royals would start packing their suitcases right now. They finally get a break. At the end of 3 1/2, Royals 2, Cards nothing. I asked him how he felt when that 82 team was dismantled.
I was very upset when we started to dismantle the team, because when you're on a team that wins, you get a kind of arrogance about you, and you think that you can go on forever that way. And to have so many players taken off that team so quickly, I couldn't really understand what the philosophy was with the organization.
Tommy Hurt talking about a team that won a world championship here in '82, and he was a part of it. And then we mentioned Whitey Herzog, almost in the mold of a mad scientist, pretty much rips it apart, puts it back together, and here he is back in the World Series. And Timmy was before talking about the '82 Milwaukee Brewers. Now there was a team that not only was good, that was a young team with Robin Yount coming into his prime, and Paul Molitor, and Charlie Moore looking like he would develop, and people like that, and all of a sudden they hit rock bottom.
A lot of things happened to that club. Of course, Pete Vukovich had the rotator cuff problems, as did Paul Molitor. Pete Vukovich won the Cy Young Award that year.
Raleigh Fingers. 2-1, change missing, 3-1 to count.
Something very important to note in this inning right now is, if there is anything called momentum in baseball, it's when your team scores, and as the pitcher you go out there and you try to shut out the other team and go right back out there and continue that momentum. So it's important for Saberhagen to...
That's grounded to short, and Biancalana comes up throwing and gets him one away. You know, too, Jim, it's important because, as we've stated, Kansas City has an 8-man pitching staff. Tomorrow night, Bud Black is on the mound against John Cooter. And Black, who had been in the bullpen, Dick Hauser telling us, will not be in the bullpen tonight under any circumstance. He also told us earlier he had hoped to have Charlie Lebrand available to maybe pitch to 1 or 2 left-handers if necessary, and then told us later that Lebrand would not be available. So he has his hands pretty tied tonight.
That he does. Of course, if you look at Charlie Lebrand, as we talked about, he came back, pitched with only 3 days rest a couple of times. Must have thrown at least 140 pitches the other night. His arm could be a little bit tender.
0-1 to Clark. Saberhagen comes sidearm, a la Joaquin. 0-2.
Well, again, deception. You give the hitter a little different angle. I never really like to do it because I felt, especially a guy like Saberhagen, who makes outstanding pitches from up top, occasionally you'll deceive the hitter, but you won't get the ball in a good location.
Does it again.
Different pitch that time. First time was a fastball, and then he came back dropping down with the slider. We mentioned Gene Mock before. In the last week of the season, he had a great remark about Saberhagen to Don Sutton. He said there is no way that this young man can be that young and know that much about pitching. And he's right.
Yeah. And then there's Gooden. that's off the planet, though. 2-2 pitch is inside, and the count 3-2.
Well, that's when you look at Gooden, you look at Saberhagen, that's when you start thinking about reincarnation. You know they've been on the earth somewhere else and they've already pitched about 2,000 innings.
Amen, brother.
And it's strike 3. Good fastball. Clark balks about the call. 93 miles per hour on the gun. And Clark more than balking right now. Relatively heated. American League umpire Jim McKean.
I'll let you call this one. sitting at home. 3-2. Looks like it's right on the outside corner.
That's a strike. Little tail on the fastball. And what happens is hitters give up on a pitch like that. Little tail brings it back over the corner.
1-0. I asked Hauser before the game if they tell Saberhagen that a baby was born if Janine gave birth tonight. He said, well, if he's got a no-hitter going through 7 and you don't see him in the 8th, he knows. 1-1.
Some things take priority, right?
Good fastball. This is just what Van Slyke needs in a slump. Having a tough time swinging, and the guy comes in at about 94.
On the corner.
Yeah.
You're saying, why me? Why can't he throw one down the middle to me?
Still 1-2. St. Louis is the home of the Spinks brothers, and there is Michael Spinks. Butch Lewis, his manager, man who did it, beating Larry Holmes. Brother Leon, of course, from St. Louis as well. 2-2 the count.
I always wanted to hit one of those when they threw them into the umpire and changed balls, but I never did. I'd like to come back sometime when they enlarge the roster in September and just take one shot. Pitchers changing the ball, take a hack at it.
Well, I suppose since we saw a shot of Spinks in the stands, this inning ends with a punch out. And at the end of 4, it's 2-0 Kansas City. It's halftime here in St. Louis, so let's get a summation from Reggie Jackson.
Well, right now, you know, you can see why that Brett Saberhagen has a chance to be the Cy Young winner in the American League. This is the way he pitched against us when the California Angels were stopped the last week over there in Kansas City. And I guess it goes to show you that he doesn't have any physical problems. Brett Saberhagen, although he's only 21 years old, he's cool, calm, and collected. Playing in Kansas City, you don't hear a heck of a lot about a guy like this. But believe me, you can see he's on target. And you can see that Mr. Joaquin Andujar on the other end of the spectrum, on the opposite end of the spectrum, has been in trouble all night long. Kansas City and Mr. Brett and company realize that Andujar has problems. He's been working and leaning on his slider, and he's going to have trouble tonight. I sure like the way Mr. Saberhagen's throwing.
So far, so good. He's allowed only 2 hits. Andujar has given up 7. Casey leads by a score of 2-0. And Brett, who has drawn an intentional walk and singled, will be followed by White and Sheridan.
You know, when you find a guy in trouble and behind hitters like Andujar's been all night, you realize it as a Royal and you want to take advantage of it.
Brett with a base hit into right field, and so George has done his job tonight. They pitched around him, walked him in the first inning, an intentional walk, then a single, a rolling single in the third, and a line single here.
There's a team down 2-0, and the most impressive thing of this series so far has been the swing of George Brett. He has impressed both the Cardinals and, of course, it has impressed Frank White and the Royals throughout their career. That is a classic swing, that closed front shoulder. Look at this swing. I mean, obviously a line drive on the end of it stands to reason.
And he makes it look so simple. You begin to wonder, why aren't there more fellas who can hit that way? White is the batter. He hits a high drive to deep left field, and Landrum goes back, but watches this one go out of there. And Landrum turned as if he had the play all the way, and you had to wonder, after Balbone's ball stayed in, you wonder if Landrum could make the catch. But that one was well back and out of here, and it's 4-0 Kansas City. And the bullpen is busy again with Horton and Campbell, and that is the first home run of the 1985 World Series.
By a guy that's not supposed to be a 4th hitter. This ball is smacked. Fastball in the middle of the plate. First time I've ever seen an outfielder fake on a home run.
Yeah.
Weird. A shortstop, a second baseman. Never an outfielder.
Easy. The old rule of thumb, just watch the outfielder. Well, it looks like a routine catch, but it's a souvenir. We'll be back. Pat Sheridan is the batter here in the 5th inning. Bill Campbell is the new pitcher as Andujar leaves after living on the precipice for 3 innings. Lonnie Smith's 2-run double in the 4th and White's booming homer here in the 5th, and Kansas City leads it by a score of 4-0. 0-2 pitch is drilled to right field, but hooking foul and back out of play. Another look at White's home run. He had 22 during this regular year.
Talk about somebody getting all of a ball way back in the tunnel, and Tito Landrum said, "Oh, mercy, that ball was there." Man.
Grounded to Clark, and that one hit the seam, but Jack is able to make the play. So that's the first out here in the 5th inning. As you look at Campbell's numbers on the season, the Cardinal bullpen basically works this way. Campbell is the long man. Horton can be a long man, but he can also come back short to get a left-handed hitter. Worrell has become the main man. Lottie is like main man 1A, and Daly is for the left-handers. That's basically the way it works.
And this guy, 1 year 17-5 at Minnesota. Next year he goes to Boston, 31 saves. Hurt his elbow after that. Really has battled back to become an integral part of this Cardinal bullpen, used in this role. The team gets behind early, and it's a very valuable role. A guy like Sammy Stewart for years in Baltimore kept us in the pennant races. Come in early in the ballgame, down 3-4 runs, pitch 3-4 innings of shutout ball, a pinch hit for it. Give your team a chance to get back in the game.
Frank White, the home run back of him. Lee May, the hitting coach. Frank thanking him for the advice. 2-1. In fact, now that I think about it, in the Royals clubhouse when we were there about 3 hours before the game, White was with May for an extended conversation about what Frank should be doing. So that was more than perhaps just circumstance that we get a shot of the two of them seated in the dugout, and there they are. Grounded foul, still 2-2.
Lee saying, of course, he listened to exactly what I told him. Frank White saying, who said I couldn't hit 4th?
Full count, 3-2. 4 runs on 9 hits for Kansas City. No runs, just a pair of hits for St. Louis. 1 out, nobody on. 5th inning. And he's on. Sundberg with a perfect night, a single and a couple of walks. Scoring summary in the 4th inning: Sundberg the walk, and Biancalana that chopping single. Saberhagen moved him along with a bunt, and Smith doubled. And now in the 5th, the single by Brett, the homer by White, the exit by Andujar, and the Royals trying to make it 2-1 in the series. Campbell in his 13th season in the major leagues, playing with his 5th team and in his first series game. Somebody trying to get into the ballpark. Probably Euchre.
Came down from where he was seated, right?
Yeah. One out. 1-0 the count. I got to give Chuck Howard, our producer, credit for that line. Little birdie whispered that in the ear. Strike. Actually, Uke is in the hotel that overlooks the top of the ballpark across the street. This park right downtown St. Louis, and there it is.
That's right. Couldn't get a room. He's on the roof.
Yeah.
There's no television in it.
Uke has a little studio apartment up there. 1-1 is a strike, and it's 1-2. St. Louis on what's becoming a little chilly night. Breeze blowing around. They are expecting perhaps some moisture tomorrow. But we heard that all weekend in Kansas City, and it was dry. Gray but dry. Down goes Balboni. Second out.
Johnny Singh used to say that pitching is the art of deceiving the hitter. And I can think of no other pitcher on either side that exemplifies that point more than Bill Campbell. All arms, legs, elbows, hands, feet. You don't know where the ball is.
Looks like a big octopus coming at you.
Yeah.
Strike. 0-1.
Actually, again, another guy that's close to 6'5", over 200 pounds. You'd think he'd be an overpowering pitcher. His best pitch is his changeup, which is what the pitch that Balboni struck out on. Again, threw much harder before he hurt his elbow, but he can be effective by changing speeds. He's done it.
Biancalana takes outside. 1 ball, 1 strike. On Roland Medico Biancalana, out of the most laid-back county in the United States, Marin, home of the hot tub in Northern California. Biancalana about as straight as they come. The last Marinite to play in the World Series, though, was Bill Lee, who lived in Marin County, Mars.
Do you live in Marin County?
No, San Mateo. But you've read about it. That could be a good spot for you, Palmer.
Well, thank you, Al.
1-2 is outside on the count, 2-2. But the damage was done. 4-0 KC back after this word from our local station. Well, here we are at Busch Stadium in St. Louis, all with the same tailor. McCarver, I told you we have a new rule, no more cigars in this booth. You've broken it. Palmer turning 40 the other day. Reggie will be there shortly. And what came into the booth, Reggie? Didn't we get some paraphernalia?
We got some kisses for
That's right.
The big guy.
Some candy kisses because you told the whole world I just turned 40.
40 pounds worth. That'll be good for your complexion.
I don't eat chocolate.
Bottom of the 5th inning as Pendleton takes a strike, and the count is 0-1.
Matter of fact, today, Al, I ran into Bob Verdi, who writes for the Chicago Tribune, and he said, doesn't Al Michaels look a lot like Steve Stone? I said, they really do. And he said, the only difference is that Al Michaels never had a good year.
Grounded to the right side, and it's White throwing him out, 1 away.
Of course, I'm alluding to Steve Stone having won a Cy Young Award and
Teammate of yours that year, back in 1980, right?
25-7. Excellent year.
Won the Cy Young, won the All-Star game. Well, that's what happens when your team is down 4-0.
Nothing else to do, right?
Self-amusement.
Yeah. Yes, they haven't had much chance to practice here this year.
Right. Porter takes low, ball 1. 1-0 the count. Kansas City leading by a score of 4-0. And it's 1-1. Brett Saberhagen, the pup at the age of 21, gets Porter to hit a fly ball to left center field. And Willie Wilson comes drifting in to make the catch, and that's the first 2 men retired here in the inning, and a total of 10 in a row. College football presentation for you. Check your local listings with Penn State and West Virginia, Nebraska, Colorado. And basically, the Mississippi River will split the country. You'll see the first one if you're east, and Nebraska, Colorado if you're west, and split screen if you're on the barge going down the Old Muddy, which is right outside this ballpark.
Tell you, in this ballpark, you think you're in Lincoln, Nebraska tonight with all the red that's being worn, either there or Owen Field in Norman, Oklahoma.
Landrum, not too much red in that dugout. Hal McRae, the designated hitter whose job now is as a pinch hitter. That's fouled away, and the count is 2 balls and 1 strike. Tito Landrum, who will be playing for the rest of the series because again Coleman is out. That bone chip discovered. And that's ball 3. Bullpen busy with Horton for the moment. Campbell is on deck, but down 4-0 if Landrum gets on. I'm sure you'll see Herzog go to the bench. He's just not tipping his hand at the moment. And that's grounded to the right side and through for a base hit. So Landrum 5 for 10 in the World Series. Still having a great postseason. And Mike Jorgensen emerges from the dugout to pinch hit. That's only the 3rd hit for St. Louis, and all have been singles.
Number 19, Mike Jorgensen.
Jorgensen's been around a long time. Mike played with the Mets and with Montreal and has come over here as a backup first baseman. He's always had a good glove. He's also played with the A's in Texas, and there goes Gary Blaylock.
No doubt Gary Blaylock going out to tell Brett Saberhagen, because he's never pitched to Mike Jorgensen, what the book is on Jorgensen.
And if you're a catcher in a pinch hitting situation right here, you're not as concerned with the book on the hitter as much as you are on the mental book on how your pitcher is throwing. Always thought that was much more important than a hitter's weakness. You stick with a pitcher's strength, especially when your pitcher is pitching as well as Brett Saberhagen. Ricky Horton there warming for the Cardinals.
He'll come in the top half of the 6th inning. 4-0 Kansas City. 2 out. Landrum at first. Bottom of the 5th. Mike Jorgensen, 37 years old. Kind of funny, he was with the Mets briefly at the end of '68, went back to the minors, and then with the Mets in '70 and '71. So he was in between postseason for them. And here's a guy in his advancing 30s who finally gets the chance now, after playing with all those clubs all those years, to see postseason action. 2-1.
Oh, good defensive first baseman, and he's the guy that Whitey Herzog uses early in the ball game as a left-handed pinch hitter. Later in the game, you'd see Steve Braun done an outstanding job. About 113, 114 lifetime pinch hits.
2-2 the count.
Another illustration of what you said, Tim. Saberhagen getting behind again has a good enough stuff, that 93-mile-per-hour fastball we've seen all night, to challenge the hitter. With a 4-run lead, again, the thing that's impressed me about Saberhagen all year is that he does not walk many batters. Got behind Tito Landrum, but made him hit the ball.
Little squibber, fair ball. Sundberg has it, throws to Balboni, and 5 shutout innings turned in by Saberhagen. Mama's still expecting, and the Royals expecting a victory. They lead 4-0. Frank White's home run made it 4-0 in the 5th inning. White, the man hitting behind George Brett with the absence of the DH. Here's what George says about having White hit back of him.
I have a lot of confidence in Frank White. Frank hit 4th on many occasions this year when Hal wasn't in the lineup due to an injury, and Frank and I have been teammates now for 12 years together. He just hit 22 home runs, a career high for him. So I have a lot of confidence in Frank White hitting behind me. So if I can lay off those pitches, I'm not going to swing at him. I'm going to give Frank a chance to drive me in.
Nothing to dispel that confidence the way White's gone, not only tonight but the other night when he had 3 hits. And here's a strike taken by Saberhagen. 4-0 Kansas City in the top of the 6th inning. Saberhagen struck out, but then laid down a bunt. Turned out to be a key bunt. Set up the 2-run double by Smith. Rick Horton in the pitch. Andujar started, then Campbell, and now the lefty. Breaks his bat and hits a chopper back of second, but there's Ozzie to throw him out. And still, as we pointed out the other night, since they went to the alternate DH in the World Series, only 1 hit by an American League pitcher, Tim Stoddard, in '79.
One of the toughest athletic things to do is to run one way and throw back the other way, and Ozzie Smith does it as well as anybody. What a gymnast in shortstop. He is that.
Lonnie Smith taking a little extra time, even though there's only one out. Saberhagen still walking back to the dugout. You love to watch Saberhagen.
Left fielder, Lonnie
As you see the earlier at bat, the double for Lonnie Smith that Van Slyke nearly came up with. Fouled away. 0-1. Started to say with Saberhagen, a lot of people have had a lot of chance now to look at him in postseason action and see how calm he is, how poised he is. And the great thing is, too, he's loving every minute of it. Grounded to short. Smith up with it. 2 down. Players, especially today of this age, and the younger players in particular, have grown up in the age of television and the advancements made by television, and they've all watched the World Series and All-Star games and playoffs within the last few years, and they sort of know how it's done. And for many, you can sense it when you talk to them. This is the ultimate dream. They're living out the fantasy.
It's amazing when you consider that only 3 years ago, Brett Saberhagen was pitching for Cleveland High School in Reseda, California, at Dodger Stadium, right?
Reseda, right?
Reseda. Oh, it is Reseda.
Yes, it is.
All right.
Well, the same thing happened to me in my first World Series. I pitched against Sandy Koufax. Incidentally, the last game he ever pitched. Didn't expect to win. As it turned out, I did. Just wanted to pitch well and not embarrass myself.
Youngest pitcher ever to pitch a shutout in the World Series, James Palmer. 20 years, 11 months, and 21 days old.
Just a mere baby.
1-2. And if you come back next year, you'll have a chance to be the oldest to pitch a shutout. Hello, Earl. They check, and they get the call on the check swing from the first base umpire Engel. And Wilson very unhappy with it. You judge for yourself here.
Went too far.
So it's a 3-up and 3-down inning. And we'll be going to the bottom of the 6th. The score remains Kansas City 4 and St. Louis nothing. Willie McGee starting the bottom of the 6th inning by lining one foul, and the count is 0-1. McGee, Ozzie Smith, and Tommy Herr, the top of the order. McGee a single tonight in the first inning, stole second, and then was thrown out on the back end of a double play when Clark struck out. 0-2. Brett Saberhagen, who led American League pitchers this season in control, walked only 1.45 per 9 innings. 1-2. Tonight he has walked 1. That was Tommy Herr in the first. And he has 5 strikeouts.
He's a lot like the pitcher we're going to be seeing for the Cardinals. A little bit better fastball. John Tudor, of course, they throw with opposite arms.
That's a ground ball foul.
Tudor being left-handed. The difference is that because of Saberhagen throwing around 93 miles per hour and Tudor in the mid-80s, he doesn't have to pitch inside, doesn't have to establish both sides of the plate, even though he can do it. But boy, he can make good pitches. Saberhagen can't away from him.
Popped up. Brett, 1 out. The Cardinal hits were McGee's single in the first.
Shortstop, Ozzie Smith.
Single in the second inning. And Landrum's 2-out single in the 5th. Ozzie Smith fouled out and grounded out. Switch it. Ozzie, a .264 hitter, left-handed this season, tries to bunt his way on and fouls it away, and Brett was charging in as he dropped the bat. 0-1. Ozzie Smith, after becoming the league championship series MVP, all of a sudden has reverted. 0 for 9. Line drive, base hit. Saberhagen must feel like target practice in the league championship series. Got one off his heel, one off his hand, and this one goes whizzing by his ear.
Well, fire and duck. He's kidding him. There's a guy by the name of Storm Davis who pitches for the Orioles. He's known for that. He's got great ability and always keeps getting hit. And I said, you must not be able to get out of the way. He said, not when they hit him that hard. But really, when you are concentrating on throwing a strike, a lot of times, especially with a 4-run lead, you want to throw a strike. You're not ready to field the ball. The optimal way to do it is to be on balance, but a lot of times you're not.
Ozzie Smith at first base, 31 steals, but keep in mind the situation. It's the 6th inning. They're down 4-0.
20 years ago, there was no way you'd steal in a situation like that, but the game has changed for the better, in my opinion. Val Boney, 20 years ago, would not even be holding Ozzie Smith on. 4 runs down in the bottom of the 6th, going under the theory that 1 run is no good. But these Cardinals will run any time.
And Ozzie has to dive back.
Of course, in this situation, I would think they'd rather have the first base hole, so they might try to give her the hole and wait for Clark to come up with a couple of guys on.
Foul ball.
Your point well made. Whenever, if you're pitching, you do not take for granted that Ozzie Smith is staying at first base.
That's right. And the reason I think the game has changed for the better is this is the Cardinals' attack. They're a running team. So if they're down 4 runs, they can't depend on the long ball to bring them back. So they have to continue to play their type of game, which is based on the stolen base. 314 on the year.
0-2 pitch is ripped into right field for a base hit. And Smith will stop at second. And the only aberration in their lineup to that running game is coming up right now. And that's Jack Clark, who can make it 4-3 in a hurry.
Ball down and in, a very dangerous area, especially to a left-handed hitter. And Tommy Hurd does with it what a lot of left-handers will do, put a line drive on it.
Clark looks at his strike. Jack has struck out twice tonight. Once looking. In, and Wilson will make sure Hurd stops at second.
Well, we've talked about Saberhagen's ability to make good pitches. This one's right down the middle. You do that to a dead fastball hitter, there's the result. Smash to center.
And the bullpen will get busy for Kansas City. Looks like Steve Farr, and it is. Throwing in the pen. Andy Van Slyke, who is in a slump. So you could say he is due. He is grounded out and struck out. And fouls it away at the plate. He's really barking at himself and angry. Probably got a pitch he thought he could hit, but he's just in one of those funks right now where he can't break out of it.
Well, that sometimes is the definition of a slump. When you get the pitch that you can handle, you don't.
0-1 to him. That's another strike on the inside corner. Now he's angry about the call.
I think he's a little bit concerned about the height of the pitch. The ball is obviously comes back and runs back over the plate. Again, the American League strike zone, even though it's come down, it's still just a shade higher than the National League, in my opinion.
Still 0-2. 4-1 Kansas City with Tommy Hurd, the runner at second base, and Jack Clark at first, and 1 out. And it's Joe Beckwith joining Farr. Beckwith hasn't pitched since the regular season. Time called at the last moment as Saberhagen was ready to come to the plate. Slyke a .259 hitter during the regular year. Change up, a half swing looper to center. Wilson with good speed makes the catch. White ran all the way out, but the ball hung. And when you deal with center fielders who can run, well, there's the prime example.
Not only out who can run, but guys who position themselves to get the clunkers. And Willie Wilson plays shallow. Jim Palmer's ex-teammate Paul Blair played shallow. And when you play a shallow center field and have no fear of balls being hit over your head and have the speed to track them down when they are hit over your head, you don't get burned on clunkers in front of you. Good play by Wilson.
That's why I think as Blaylock visits the mound, most managers want their center fielder to play shallow. A lot of center fielders just don't feel comfortable there.
Well, a lot of managers don't feel comfortable. I know that the worst thing that Earl Weaver ever wanted to happen, and it maybe happened to Paul Blair 2 or 3 times a year, was have a ball hit over your outfielder's head. Put the man in scoring position.
Saberhagen has thrown 96 pitches. Number 97 will be thrown right now to Terry Pendleton. Switch hitter. Wilson again very shallow in center field. And Pendleton pops it foul, and that one drifts back out of play. 0-1.
I think a point to illustrate that is that it's great when Wilson makes a catch like he did. Now, of course, you talked about his ability to go back, and he does have that. But if Van Slyke or even Pendleton, with a 4-1 lead, hits a double, something up the gap that Wilson doesn't get to, not only do you score 2 runs, but you put it up the tying run at second base. But it's a matter of preference.
Outfield alignment right there. Will he shallow and shaded toward left? 2 on and 2 out, and the 0-1 pitch coming is almost a wild pitch. And that one just slipped out of Saberhagen's hand. 1-1. Nice play by Sundberg.
Just a curveball, right? He just loses his grip on it. Happened to myself quite a bit, all the time.
Big play there by the catcher. Otherwise, it's second and third. Saberhagen only threw 1 wild pitch all season, and as we said, he led the league in fewest walks per 9 innings. 1-1 is a changeup, line to right field, but Sheridan is there and makes the catch. So he gets good wood, but the inning is over, and the Cardinals settle for 1. 4-1 Kansas City. Going to the 7th inning, talked about Brett Saberhagen's poise several times tonight, and I asked him to try to explain it.
Mainly because my best friend in high school and Little League was 2 years old, a year and a half older than me. He was 2 grades ahead of me in school, but he was only a year and a half ahead of me in age-wise, and a year ahead of me in baseball. So I was always like 1 year behind him, but we were pretty much playing against each other. And I was around his friends in high school when he was a senior. I was hanging around his friends, and I was a sophomore at the time. So that might have had something to do with it too.
Had a pretty good upbringing, and there's his father. Almost looks as young as Brett. Bob Saberhagen, with Brett swinging and missing in the count 0-1. What a thrill to watch your kid come up in high school and cap his high school career in Dodger Stadium in a high school championship game. And 3 years later, you're sitting at the World Series.
Boy, I think he was 9-0 his senior year, yet he was drafted in the 19th round, and he hurt his arm after he completed it. His senior year of pitching.
1-1 to Brett from Horton is outside. 2-1. Royals losing 15 games this season in which they were ahead going into the 7th. And that's a remarkable thing when you think about Quisenberry.
Well, what makes it, in my mind, somewhat unremarkable is, number one, as you said, Quisenberry did not have a vintage year. But number two, you're talking about a team that was 13th in batting average and 13th in runs scored. So therefore, they were probably in a lot of 1-run ball games. Instead of leading 5-2, it might have been 3-2, 2-1.
All right, we'll call it quasi-remarkable then. Joaquin Andujar, a starting pitcher, normally goes back to the clubhouse. If you've been watching the Cardinals in postseason, in all of Joaquin's games, he has remained on the bench. And there is tomorrow night's pitcher, John Tudor. Andujar may have
remain in the dugout to ask Herzog about those trade rumors again.
Brett rips one down the line and right, and it is a foul ball. And that one was called by Billy Williams down the line in right field. One of the reasons you go with 6 umpires in the World Series. Regular season, the first base umpire makes this call.
Hey, this ball just foul. Hooking, hooking, hooking. Oh, baby. That was close.
Brett with a perfect night, an intentional walk, 2 singles. His single in the 5th inning preceded White's home run.
Can you imagine if George Brett was John McEnroe and he just
on that call? Yeah. 3-2 is inside for ball 4. Yeah, he'd be off the circuit for 3 weeks.
You deferred to Chuck Howard before. I have to defer to Reggie Jackson.
Frank White.
Great line, Reg.
Wednesday, game 4. Tomorrow, Bud Black for Kansas City and John Tooner for the Cardinals. And again, the times are all the same. We're in the Central Time Zone, so everything starts at 8 Eastern, 7 Central, 6 o'clock in Denver and Environs, and 5 o'clock on the West Coast. White hitting this 5th inning home run.
Now he's only 5 for 9 with a dinger. Nothing wrong with that for a 4th place hitter.
Tell you, that was a home run in caps. He got all of that one. Frank White didn't weigh but 170 pounds. He got every pound into that ball that he hit the last time up.
0-1 the count. Brett at first base. 4-1 Kansas City in the 7th inning. Ooh, he almost got caught going the other way. And a balk is called. Bob Engel calling a balk on Ricky Horton.
Well, Ricky Horton doesn't agree. He has one of the best moves for a left-hander in the National League. Of course, Bob Engel has seen that move many times, no doubt. And the rule says if you come behind the pitching rubber with your right leg, you have to go home. So what the pitcher tries to do is kind of hang his leg and right on the rubber. Obviously, he must have come behind the rubber and then went to first, thus a balk, at least in the mind of Bob Engel, and that's what counts.
1 ball, 1 strike. Brett at second base and nobody out. 4-1 Kansas City. 7th inning. Got fooled, tried to check his swing and couldn't. 1-2.
Frank wanted to hold up, but the bat carried his body around. Almost completely around.
It'll be interesting to see, even when you're leading 4-1, nobody out, man on second, you'd like to advance the runner. You'd like to get him to third base with only 1 out. Because with 2 strikes, sometimes you cannot manipulate the bat as much as you'd like.
Of course, you do have a left-handed hitter who is 0 for 13 with runners in scoring position on deck.
That's drilled into the left field corner, hooking, and it is a fair ball. And bouncing away from Landrum, and White has a double, and he really is playing the part of a number 4 hitter as Brett comes in to score.
With due respect to my colleague, I would much rather see a guy get him in this way and now have Pat Sheridan push him over. What do you think?
No kidding.
No joke, right?
Exactly. Except,
of course, it was 2 strikes in, and then
more
you're going
due respect,
yourself,
I doubt if Sheridan would have hit. They probably would have seen Motley.
Yeah, could be.
We could go on all night like this.
Indeed
We'll defer
we
to
could.
you, Al.
I beg your pardon?
Say, we'll defer to you. Take over.
I was just sitting here reading the book.
So you finally did read the book.
Yeah, I read it recently. 5-1 Kansas City with nobody out, and Sheridan at the plate. Horton throwing, and Sheridan bunting foul, and the count 0-1. In the bullpen, activity now again for the Cardinals with Ken Daly throwing, the left-hander. When the Cards bat in the bottom of the 7th inning, the pitcher is due up 3rd. Little soft bouncer to short. Ozzie Smith throws him out, and White remains at second base. So White at second with 1 away now, and Jim Sundberg is the batter. Perfect night for Sundberg with a single and 2 walks. Came in to score on Lonnie Smith's double. Kansas City, after threatening in the first 3 innings, got 2 in the 4th on Smith's double, 2 in the 5th on White's homer. Cardinals rallied in the bottom of the 6th and scored a run on singles by Smith, Herr, and Clark. And the Royals have answered again in the 7th on the walk to Brett, the balk, and White's double. Outside. 1 ball and no strikes to count on Sundberg.
And also, that was a big balk committed by Ricky Horton, because George Brett probably does not score if he's on first base, because White hit that ball too sharply.
I think the umpires in the American League, Jim, are a little bit more liberal on left-handed balks than they are in the National League.
I think there are more liberal in all kinds of balks. And the reason I say that, I used to pitch in spring training, and the moves that you would make with the American League umpires, you couldn't get away with the National League umpires.
Two and 1 the count on Sundberg.
The actual definition of a balk is an attempt to deceive the runner, but a good move is also an attempt to deceive the runner. So there's a fine line. Of course, the umpire has to make that decision.
Now it's 3 and 1 with Balboni waiting on deck. There's Steve, who's 0 for 3 tonight. White has been the big man as far as the damage is concerned, along with Lonnie Smith. And that's ripped right back to him. And in self-defense, he makes the catch. And White remains at second.
Well, you don't realize how close 60 feet 6 inches can be until you get one of these. And we're talking reflexes there. That's exactly what that play is. Once again, not in great fielding position, just a reflex action.
Well, here's Balboni, and they figure, why not? He's due. He's 2 for 11 in the World Series, and he was 3 for 25 in the playoffs. So despite the fact he's in the slump, they're not going to take any chances. No sense in doing that. And they'll work on Biancalana with runners at first and second. Biancalana has fly to left, singled, and struck out. And Buddy making his way to the plate.
Shortstop, Buddy Biancalana.
So White is at second and Balboni is at first. 2 down, 5-1 Kansas City. And he rips it into right field for a base hit. Ferraro is waving right in. The throw is not there, and the runners advance, and it's now 6-1. So Biancalana, a 188 hitter, who drove in 6 runs all season. Granted, he played only about half the time, picks up an RBI here.
As a matter of fact, Biancalana is one of 4 major leaguers with more errors than RBIs. He committed 10 errors on the season. Coincidentally, his teammate, Onyx Concepcion, is another one. He committed 21 errors and drove in 20 runs. But a big hit for Buddy Biancalana right here. The throw up the line a bit. And the Royals are certainly taking control of this ball game.
They lead 6-1, and with Saberhagen at the plate, Ferraro left no doubt. The third base coach, he was sending him all the way, knowing the situation. It looked like Van Slyke could throw him out. And And I think about Mike Ferraro every time I see him wave a runner, and I keep thinking about that Royals-Yankees playoff in 1980 when he was a Yankee coach under Hauser, and he sent Willie Randolph in a key spot, and there is Mike, the former manager of the Indians. And he got himself, in essence, fired that night along with Hauser. Not that that one thing did it, but if you recall Steinbrenner's reaction, he sort of threw his hands up and then down and walked out of the ballpark, or at least back out of his seat. Herzog, whose team wins 2 on the road but trails here at home 6-1. Whitey will still go bass fishing tomorrow. Grounded to short. Ozzie Smith throws out Saberhagen, but here in the inning, 2 more for Kansas City at the end of 6.5, 5-1 Royals. 6-1 Kansas City. Again, the scoring summary. Lonnie Smith's 2-run double in the 4th inning, 2-0. Then White followed with a 2-run homer after Brett singled. Cardinal run came in the bottom half of the 6th inning on 3 singles, and Clark drove in the run, and then 2 more for KC in the top of the 7th. White driving in one with a double and Biancalana the other with a single. Darryl Porter hits the first pitch in the air to Biancalana. 1 out. There it is graphically for you. Clark driving in the Cardinal run and the 7th inning story for KC. Tito Landrum grounded on and singled. Tito not only extremely bright and articulate, and down he goes on a breaking pitch, but incredibly polite, listening to him in the press conference the other day. And not condescendingly polite as you watch the pitch again, which is not a knockdown by any stretch of the imagination, just the breaking ball that got away. But every other man is addressed as sir, or if the lady asks a question, ma'am, and it's genuine from him. One and 2. Steve Braun has come out on deck to bat for Horton. We saw Daly in the pen, so he's already ready. He's back in the dugout. 1-2 the count. Two and 2. You get the feeling Saberhagen's first call after the game might be home, don't you?
Indeed.
Janine's still sitting there, we think. Now goes Landrum. If she's not, we've got a scoop. Well, you'll be the first to know anyway, we promise.
Well, this pitch right here is going to make a lot of right-handed hitters sitting at home that play in the American League real happy. He's come up with a sidearm curveball to go with the overhand one at the 93-mile-per-hour fastball.
Number 25, Brian Harper.
Brian Harper now, instead of Braun, will come up to hit. That is the Cardinal Hall of Fame. That's a live shot in the Cardinal Hall of Fame, which is in Busch Stadium. The championship trophies. We told you the other night that they had won 9 world championships, and that happens to be the 1982 trophy. And they're 9, second only to the Yankees 22. Marvelous tradition here. Brian Harper, the batter. Braun was out on deck. You get the feeling if Landrum had gotten on, they might have gone with Braun, but with nobody on base, he's going to save Braun for later. And opts for the right-hand batter, who hits it down the line in right field and foul. 0-1. 2 out and the base is empty. 6-1 Kansas City. Busch Stadium, a sea of red. That's in the air just about to the same spot. Cardinals here. Well, when you talk about the Cardinals in St. Louis, you have to specify Busch Stadium, the home of the baseball Cardinals and the football Cardinals. And people around here really don't go around saying the baseball Cardinals and the football Cardinals. If you want to talk about the baseball team, they're normally known as the Redbirds. And if you want to talk about the football team, you call them the Big Red. And litter on the warning track, creating this delay. Wilson does some house cleaning.
Excuse me, Al, you saw the trophies in the Hall of Fame room. One of those were from the 1967 series. And in that 67 series, Cardinals against the Red Sox, in Game 6, Red Shandies, the manager of the Cardinals, sent someone up to the clubhouse to get Alex Johnson, who was supposed to be the pinch hitter. Well, it was a blowout game. Red Sox over the Cardinals 8-2. Well, Alex was munching on a Dagwood sandwich with mayonnaise coming down both lanes. So Red said, well, Alex will forego that. He didn't say forego, but he said, Phil Gagliano, get a bat. So it happens even in the series.
We know what happens during the regular season, because I saw Tommy Davis hit a number of times with mustard on his mouth. And usually get a hit.
That's grounded down to White, and Saberhagen, after a rough sixth, has things in gear in the seventh. Still 6-1 back at Busch Stadium after this from our local stations. New Cardinal pitcher is Ken Daly, so they go deep into their pen tonight. On to Har Campbell, Horton, Daly, pitcher number 4 for St. Louis. And he goes to work on the top of the order with Lonnie Smith to lead off, then Willie Wilson and George Brett. Lonnie with that big hit, that 2-run double in the 4th inning, coming with 2 out, coming after Kansas City had squandered some early opportunities. And we talked earlier that Sheridan had an at-bat in the 3rd inning that we felt was going to be extremely consequential in determining the outcome of this World Series if Kansas City was to get back in it. As it turns out now, that at-bat just took place 1 inning later with Lonnie Smith. Dick Hauser, placid as always. Strike 2, and they count 0-2. One ball and 2 strikes to count.
It seemed after the second game, when everybody was second guessing Dick Hauser, I liked his definition of second guessing. He says, I call it criticism. But he said, that's my job. That's my job as a manager. And when I get tired of taking criticism and second guessing, then he said, I guess I'll go on to some other kind of endeavor.
Can you imagine after the other night? I mean, just think about it. Put yourself in that position. Answering that question, how many times has he answered in the last 48 hours? With Lee Grant and Quisenberry, over and over and over and over. And I thought it was very interesting the way all of his players really stood up behind him as it's fouled away. Willie Wilson was in effect sort of in a backhanded way indicating some criticism of him in a quote. They caught Willie at a time when they asked him about the decision. He was frustrated about the game, and he said something along the lines of, well, anybody who knows baseball knows what should have been done. I don't want to talk about it any further. And that could have been interpreted as a little criticism of Hauser. But Brett, if you didn't see the Monday night insert we did last night, said, you know, when you think about that decision, Hauser put it all on himself. It was all Dick in terms of what was going to be the feedback from it, where Quisenberry came in, and Quisenberry gets some of the blame. Smith, strike shot. 1 away.
We saw Ken Daly in the second game, and there you get an idea of what kind of stuff he has. Again, if you're a manager, a nice left-hander to bring in. He's got the fastball up there in the 90s, a good hard curveball to go with it.
Willie Wilson, 2 for 4, 2 singles. Oh, 0-1. With all of the attention, as you look at Brett, focused on the series and the media involvement and everything, every time in the history of the series, naturally, a team gets down 2-0, the line of questioning is basically the same. Do you feel the pressure? Do you feel your backs into the wall and all that? And you didn't feel any of that, really, Kansas City clubhouse today. 0.
Well, they're basically used to it, as they've said all year. I mean, they were behind late in the season to the Angels, came back when they were playing very poorly and won. Went behind to the Blue Jays in Toronto. Went up there trailing 3-1 and won.
Bud Black, who will pitch tomorrow night. The left-hander goes to the mound against John Tudor. Making some mental notes. Came on a bit at the end of the season despite that 10-15 record. Strike 2, 2-2. 92 miles per hour, says the speed gun on that one.
Willie's saying this guy's tough enough to hit when you call the strikes that are supposed to be strikes. Doesn't think that's a strike.
Full count, 3-2 on Willie Wilson. Saberhagen is really uptight about this game. You can hear him. Hi, Janine. Foul away again.
So you know where his heart is, and the Cardinals have found out where his fastball is tonight.
And they found it pretty tough to hit. 3-2 the count. And Daly once again. Strike 3. And Wilson upset about strike 2. Ain't any happier over strike 3.
Strike 2 was on the inside corner, and strike 3 is called on the outside corner by Jim McKean.
Saberhagen wants to know if the baby's still there. I wish we could answer it for you.
That's right. We got a lot of answers up in this booth, but not all of them.
But not those.
What those 6-1 leads will do. They loosen you up.
Another strike. 0-2 the count on George Brett. I mean, do you think guys like Marty Marion and Ty Cobb and some of the older fellas could have ever envisioned the day that the World Series would be watched by the whole country, and in the middle of the game a pitcher would be delivering a message on television to his wife?
No.
On AstroTurf. One and 2. 2-2 the count.
Marty Marion, a member of the 46 Cardinals that beat the Red Sox. Famous Enos Slaughter scoring on the double by Harry Walker, the short double at that. A lot of people remember it as a single, but he was off and running and scored on that double when Johnny Pesky held the ball.
Porter couldn't hold it. Still 2-2. 2 out and no one on. 6-1 Kansas City. 8th inning. Three and 2. George is on, so Frank White comes up with 2 out. White's been a big man tonight. Hit into a double play walk, home run, and a double. Driven in 3 runs and scored twice.
Not a bad night for George Brett either.
No.
3 walks, 1 intentional, and 2 singles. He's been on base 5 straight times.
Frank White, who's been there a long time, Went to the old baseball academy started by Ewing Kauffman years ago to teach kids how to play ball. And he's the most famous graduate. Very much typifying the solidity and, in a way, as you look at his double here in the 7th inning, the demeanor of this Kansas City team. That double driving in a run, and is succeeding at bat following the homer. And he pops his valve. You get the feeling, though, around the Royals to sum up the move, they would be one of the great teams to go on one of those off-season fan cruises with. You would have a lot of fun with them. Whereas, for instance, you took Reggie Jackson's A's of the mid-'70s, a cruise with those guys, the captain's table would have been turned over every night. A few guys overboard. 1-1 pitch is up high, ball 2. 2-1.
You mentioned Frank White and graduating from the baseball academy back in 1973. How about the guy they turned away some 5 years later? Andre Dawson of the Montreal Expos. Gone on to be a pretty fair major league outfielder.
Yeah, that's hard to believe because he's showing raw talent from the beginning.
Yeah. That was the whole theory behind the academy, though. They would take players that not necessarily great baseball players, but had great athletic ability and mold them into baseball players. Makes a lot of sense.
3-1 pitch, swing and a miss. You saw that sign, who's on top now, New York and LA. There's a little bit of that, I don't know if you call it resentment or whatever, in Missouri, in both St. Louis and Kansas City, but they know that the media focus is on the big cities. In fact, some fans were leaning out of the upper deck before the game, berating the New York writers, screaming down into the press box, "Hey, how about your Mets now?" 3-2 pitch, the runner goes, and it's fouled away. So Brett on the move, 3-2 with 2 down, and back he comes. Up. So they'll get White this time. If Clark has room, he does. At the end of 7½, 6-1 Royals. Chet Forty has punched up a shot of the moon, the significance being that with all of the grayness in the 2 cities thus far in the World Series, we finally have some clear skies over Busch Stadium. And let's get an 8th inning comment from the Red-Giroux. What do you think?
Well, obviously the Royals have come here to redeem themselves, and they have just that way. I think every baseball player wants to be remembered as a guy that answered the bell, a guy that was home when they called on him. And I think that Frank White, George Brett, and Brett Saberhagen can certainly say that tonight.
McGee grounding out, 1 away.
The Royals wanted to prove to people that they're not just going to lay down or not struggle through this 4-game series and not win a ball game. Andujar had problems during the early part of the game. Didn't have any confidence in his fastball. He kept throwing a breaking ball. Consequently, he got hurt. Brett Saberhagen now will close the door. He is a closer, and to be so young, you just can't say enough about him.
Lynn Jones comes into the game now defensively in left field, replacing Lonnie Smith. 1 out, 1-0 the count on the Wizard. By the way, George Brett tonight reaching base safely 5 times, and that ties a World Series record. It's been done on 8 occasions, and most recently by Reggie Jackson in 1981 in the Yankee-Dodger World Series. 2-1. Reggie figured he had to do something to make everybody forget a fly ball in the sun, as I recall. Stop hitting me. Grounded to third. Great stop by Brett, who had to reach behind him, and he gets it. And so George is at it again at third. He's had a good postseason defensively. Not a spectacular play, but just a nice play.
Second baseman.
Well, again, you'd say it. I've always felt he had a lot of agility. The superstars with him for years found out he was a great athlete. Had a pitch against him. But you play Ozzie Smith in, makes a play like that more difficult. Way to his left. A lot of people think that this is his best year defensively. He may win a Golden Glove. Went from about 214 pounds down to about 188, now up in the 190s.
Tommy Herr, no balls and a strike to count. 2 out, no one on. 6-1 Kansas City. 1-1. Now World Series, as we told you, there it is graphically for you. Go back to Ruth, who did it twice. Look at those names. Brock. Kiko Garcia somehow doesn't fit on that graphic, but there he is.
4 for 4 with a walk in that ball game against the Pirates.
Line to center field, but right at Willie Wilson, who one-hands it, and that's that. And Saberhagen is indeed a good closer. That's 8 straight retired by Brett. We go to the 9th. I want to remind you tonight on Nightline, GM Saturn car is a bold gamble to reshape the U.S. auto industry, but at stake is the future of General Motors and millions of American jobs. That story detailed tonight on Nightline, following your late local news. Al Michaels, Jim Palmer, Tim McCarver, Reggie Jackson, our pregame analyst at Busch Stadium, and we'll be back here tomorrow night. Game 4 at 8 o'clock. 9th inning, Pat Sheridan leads things off for Kansas City. Sheridan, Sundberg, and Balboni. Pitch taken outside, ball 1. Ozzie Smith over to Clark. 1 away. Sundberg the batter, and again in the bullpen for the Cardinals, the right-hander Bob Forsch, who's sort of in a no man's land spot right now. They could call on him to start if necessary, but it's Tudor tomorrow. You would think Cox again on Thursday if we have a 5th game.
One of the reasons that Bob Forsch, other than just getting the work down the bullpen, might be throwing is the fact that Danny Cox was bothered with the elbow injury and may not be able to pitch, or might be doubtful, or might have some problems when he goes out there.
Possible.
Whitey Herzog, as a matter of fact, talking to Whitey before the game, said that it will be either Bob Forsch or Danny Cox, depending on the stability of Cox's elbow, for a Thursday night start, which appears to be a surety right now.
Don't tell that to Hauser yet. That's the last thing Dick would want to hear at this moment. So things do look a little better tonight than they did on Sunday. 3-0 the count on Sundberg. There is Hauser, the 49-year-old from Tallahassee, Florida.
Does that look like a man that knows that this win is a surety?
He looks the same as he did when he was behind the other night.
That's a strike, and the count 3-1 on Sundberg. Cards in the bottom of the 9th started with Clark, Van Slyke, and Pendleton. Two on the Royal catcher. The 3-2 pitch is high, ball 4. A reminder for most of you, the late local news following the ball game.
First baseman, Steve Balboni.
Steve Balboni is 0 for 3 tonight and 2 for 11 in the series. 7 of the last 13 teams losing the first 2 games went on to win the World Series. However, no team has done it under these circumstances, losing the first 2 on the road or at home and then coming back to win it, as Kansas City will have to do. They will make history if they are able to win the 1985 World Series.
This seems like an innocent at bat with the Royals safely out in front 6-1. Sundberg at first with 1 out in the 9th inning. But I'm sure Dick Hauser would like to see Balboni crush one in this situation. Give him some confidence for tomorrow and Thursday and throughout the rest of the series.
1-2. Herzog. Here's trainer Gene Gieselman and Red Shandings as we go down the line. And Devontae Jesus has not seen much action.
You wonder,
third base coach.
I think, Al, when the announcement of Vince Coleman not being available to play the rest of the series will do.
Fly ball to right field and into the corner and deep, but going back is Van Slyke to make the catch. And there are 2 down. Well, you know, they've been able to put the Coleman story kind of in agatype because what Landrum has done, but now all of a sudden, as you're on the verge of losing the game, people will begin to think about this again.
Well, there's the old, and it's almost become, I guess it has become a cliche, is that speed doesn't allow you to get into slumps. And the one thing that Coleman could do with 110 runs is generate a lot of oomph at the beginning of your offense. It makes everybody behind you a better hitter. Creates a lot more situations that puts pressure on the defense and the opposing pitcher.
On the other hand, the Cardinals are fortunate, obviously, to have Cesar Cedeno and Tito Francona to be there with the absence of Coleman.
Tito Landrum. Wrong Tito. You said Francona.
Oh, Tito Francona, I said?
Right, you said.
I was probably thinking of his .363 average with Cleveland in 59.
I'm sure you were. And as long as we're on Tito's, how about Fuentes?
That's right,
how
another
about
switch hitter.
0-2 pitch is outside, and the count is 1-2.
Tito's son Terry playing for the Montreal Expos, and that has nothing to do with it also, right?
Not as far as I know. Meanwhile, Bianca Lana, the 188 hitting shortstop, 2 hits tonight, and he hits this little looper to the right side, and Clark backs up and makes the catch. So the Cards come up in the bottom of the 9th. KC leads 6-1. CFA football, Keith Jackson will be with Frank Broyles for the Penn State-West Virginia game, which you'll see in most of the East. And in the West, Tim Brandt and the Cupper Lee Gross Cup out of Utah with Nebraska against Colorado. That's our CFA college football presentation coming your way Saturday. Bottom of the 9th inning. Jack Clark to lead things off. Clark 1 for 3. KC leading it 6-1. And that's a strike to Jack, and the count is 0-1. So much for the Reggie bar, huh? And he commits, did Clark. That's a crazy way to waste a strike. 0-1. You run up the butt.
Well, I think he may have thought about it, except maybe thought the ball was inside, but definitely would have caught Brett down at third base. Unexpected.
And obviously not a bad play with the Cardinals trailing by 5. They need base runners.
Just the way he took it, though. He ran up and he didn't know what he wanted to do with it.
Well, he's probably never done it before.
Yeah, very, very infrequently. 1-2 the count. Two and two. What a giant lift this is for the Royals. Not only winning the ball game, but the way Saberhagen is doing it. And on a night when the bullpen is a little soft, down he goes. We said before that Bud Black might have been available, and Hauser's thinking earlier on. Charlie Leibray said he could not pitch tonight as you watch that Clark swing again. And so not only did they need a victory, but a complete game will really help get everything back in cycle for KC. (0-1) on Andy Van Slyke.
Well, we're getting a total showcase of all his pitches.
This is a clinic right now. 9 in a row for Saberhagen.
1-1. Now Janine back in Kansas City. Don't get too excited. Just let it take its natural course. She's going to be a very happy lady right now. One ball, 2 strikes. This telecast presented by authority of Major League Baseball may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form without the express written consent of Major League Baseball. One out and no one on. The Royals finally capitalizing tonight. Had some chances early, couldn't cash. And Lonnie Smith, a big double in the 4th to drive in 2. Frank White hit a 2-run homer in the 5th, and they were off and rolling. Good changeup. 8 strikeouts. He hasn't given up a hit since Clark's single in that mini rally in the 6th inning.
To have the wherewithal also to stare off, and that's what he did. He stared it off. The fastball in, the fastball away, the curveball, and now the straight change. You saw Sundberg go through every sign he had, and he wanted to throw the straight change, and when a pitcher wants to do it, let him do it.
Pendleton. Well, this is a Cy Young performance tonight, and Saberhagen could win the Cy Young Award, but keep in mind that postseason action does not count. The ballots were tallied at the end of the regular season, so what you do in post means nothing. But it should be Saberhagen or Guidry.
Saberhagen 20-6 and Ron Guidry 22-6. And one of the big differences, the Kansas City club won their pennant.
Guidry with a little bit higher earned run average.
And the Yankees finished 2nd. Jim Palmer, winner of 3 Cy Youngs. What do you think?
Well, it doesn't matter. I don't get the vote. How's that for dodging it?
Well, I'm telling you. Got to take the position, Jim.
Well, it's a good point. I really think they both had outstanding years, and I'm going to go back to, I think, 1969 when they split it between McLean and Cuellar.
Oh, come on.
How's that?
Awful.
They're both very deserving. I made all the predictions in the pregame show, and it's totally wrong. So what can I say?
Get Weaver on the phone. 1-2 pitch is lifted to left field and right at Lynn Jones, and the Kansas City Royals rebound from a gut-wrenching loss on Sunday, come into St. Louis and beat the Cardinals by a score of 6-1. Brett Saberhagen will be in that clubhouse in just a few moments, phoning up Janine. We'll be back. And to Alan Roth and Steve Hurt, our thanks for the statistics as you look at the line score and totals in this one, the night belonging to Saberhagen and Frank White, who tonight drove in 3 runs. George Brett got aboard 5 times. And the final score